VIDEOTECH.
All right, we're back for another episode of Return to Videotech. I'm Keith, and with me, as always, is my buddy Matt. How's it going, dude?
Listen, things are buzz right now. It's Jaws Day, so I mean, nothing. I haven't been more excited about doing an episode of the show than Jaws, and nothing more perfect for you and I to get together and have it be the 50th anniversary year of Jaws.
Yeah.
A movie that I don't think we watched together at any point, like early in our lives or anything, or even really talked about that much. In our time of hanging out, but just over, as the years go on, we're both like, oh yeah, well, also we both love Jaws, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Have we ever even watched this movie together? I don't think we have.
So. I don't. I don't recall us watching it together, which we should fix that. We should. I don't know. I know it would be crazy. It would be cool if we could work something out to go. Because aren't they doing this big thing in September, like Labor Day weekend or something for this big? I think they're doing some sort of re-release.
Oh, really? I don't know. Yeah, I know. I think there's like a new 4K out already.
There is, yeah.
People. I didn't get it because I think it's a steelbook only, and I don't collect steelbooks. But
are you hard against that? I didn't. I guess that wasn't clear to me.
I'm not like against it for other people. Like I don't think, but for me, I just don't buy them.
Okay. I guess. And this was clear to me from your videos about the Criterion post that the word on the street now is that you're not into digipacks. Is that true?
Yeah, dude. We haven't talked about this before.
I think maybe we've danced around it. I didn't remember you specifically saying you didn't like digipacks, but maybe you did.
I mean, I have a bunch of Criterions that are digipacks. I just would prefer the plastic. I forget what they're called. Just the plastic cases.
I normally don't care. I don't have a preference on that type of stuff. I'll buy whatever version of whatever. I'm not that picky about stuff. But I will say, in defense of your stance on this, I've had a couple digipacks where it's come and it's like there's a crease in the thing, and I don't like that. My Malcolm X has a big crease in it. I think my Anora kind of does too, to be honest. And I'm not that into that aspect of it. So
and like we've said many times before, Criterion's new thing is like, I don't know if this goes for every new release, but as far as I know, every new release that comes out in 4K is a digipack, and all the Blu-rays are in the plastic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So you just held up Sorcerer.
Yeah,
I got that as well.
Yeah,
and I just have the Blu-ray.
The difference, although I will say this is actually feels like a solid digipack. It's not. There's no creases. I was really excited about this. I've been keeping a list. By the way, I did not get this for the Barnes & Noble. It just happened to come like the same week because I pre-ordered it.
I was going to say, I think you brought that up in a previous episode.
Yeah, but it was one of those movies. I keep a list of movies still to own, like movies that I don't own that I'm like, I need to buy this at some point. And a lot of that list is just waiting for a release or whatever. And within like a year, a bunch of stuff all hit at once, like Last Picture Show, Sorcerer. I had a copy of Sunset Boulevard, but there's a 4K release of that coming out too. So the list, it seems to work in a weird way where I'll be like waiting for stuff forever, and then within a small period of time, all of those things just get a release.
Have you seen Sorcerer, by the way? I watched it today for the first time.
What'd you think? I think it's sweet.
I thought it was sweet. I do think the beginning they could have cut like maybe 20 minutes out of, because it's a lot of like building up the characters before anything really happens. But I do think the backstory of all the characters is cool.
Well, I'm sure you can tell what I enjoy about it. It has like sort of a 70s almost grindhousey feel to it in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So
I don't think I didn't put it on Letterboxd yet, but I'd probably give it like 3.5 or 4 stars.
Wow, I gave it 5 stars the first time I watched it.
Wow. Dude, there's a lot of cool stuff about that movie though. Like all the stuff with the trucks, like it was very tense, and I like the jungly atmosphere and all how rainy it was, and like the bridge sequences were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, in terms of like the full action sequence with the bridge and the truck, it's just like one of the most insane things.
Yeah.
I did, as I think it was Donatello, who once said, "Don't worry, I came prepared." I did bring a
Dude,
Narragansett beer, snagged it.
I had a thought that you might do that. I don't
Uh,
even know if they sell those around here though.
in this awesome 12-pack case
Have you been
with
saving that for this
Jaws on.
special occasion?
No, I just bought this like literally 3 hours ago.
Uh, that's
I
awesome.
saw it and I was like, "Oh, it's meant to be." They only had two of them left, so yeah.
Well,
You got the Herman Bloom.
speaking of Criterion stuff, I don't
Yeah,
know. Do you want to run through what you've picked up so far, or did you make it to the to Barnes and Nobles yet, or
I
no?
haven't gone in person. I did place an order online. Why don't you real quick just run through what you've done? I know
Okay.
you did a separate video, but
Yeah.
let's give it for the
I'll just I'll
return to
just fire them
Videotech
off quick
hardcores.
because I have a lot.
Yeah, please let's
Here's
do that.
here's the stack. I went twice.
All right, no
So we
problems
just
here.
talked about Sorcerer. Got
Mhm.
that. That's cool. This is a John Woo movie, Last Hurrah for Chivalry. I had never heard of this or seen it before, so I was like, "That's
Yeah.
new." I'll
Yeah.
check it out. It has like an early Jackie Chan performance. It's just like a, I don't know, just like an action movie.
Okay, that looks fun.
Um, Another Yasuhiro Ozu movie, Tokyo Story. I just watched Good Morning and I really liked it and talked about it in another video.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I got this one. This is highly recommended by a lot of people, but like the rest of these are blind buys. Well, other than one, but we talked about in the last episode Akira Kurosawa and how Spike
Lee.
Spike Lee is remaking this,
Mm-hmm.
High and Low.
Yeah. By the
This
way,
is
that
yeah,
is another one that I think, we keep talking about people's top lists all the time, but high and low is one that comes up a lot too.
yeah, for sure. Um, the original of Sorcerer, which I have not seen yet,
Same.
Wages of Fear.
And it's like one of those things that's, I don't know if I have any cred. Not that I need cred or care about having cred, but it is a weird thing that I feel like I gave Sorcerer 5 stars the first time I ever watched it because I really was like blown away by it. I was like, wow, this is a nuts movie.
Hmm.
And I just think Friedkin it was like a really great filmmaker. But it
Yeah,
is like, oh, it's a remake that I've never seen the original of.
yeah.
So it's
I
like,
think part of the reason why why I would probably only give it 3.5 was probably just because I watched so many really good movies from
wow,
the 70s in like a 2 day span.
I get
Because
it.
like I watched Jaws yesterday,
Hmm.
and then I watched the movie that you assigned me.
Yeah,
What is it called again? I'm forgetting the name
The
right
Last
now.
Detail.
The Last Detail. And then I also watched Steven Spielberg's first movie. God, I'm forgetting the name of that now.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. That's funny that you
Highway something.
I
I
actually
don't know.
just started watching it too. No, this it's something the Sugarland Express or something.
Sugar Lane Express. That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
actually
literally just watched it today, but I
so
can't
I
remember
I
the
put
name.
it on. Did you watch it on Netflix?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's yeah.
It looks really good, doesn't it? That must be like some 4K scan or something, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. The cinematography was great in that movie. Yeah, it
so
was
I
good.
have to finish it. I only watched like the first 40 minutes, but I was really digging it.
Yeah.
It'd been on my list to watch for a while, and I just saw it up there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put this on." But yeah, welcome to like every week of my life, Keith. I watch like five great 70s movies like every week.
Yeah. I'm cramming a lot in. Continuing on,
Yeah,
I have two Vim Vendors movies. You brought up The American Friend
I know. I saw it in your other video, and I was like, "Boy, I hope he's not like, what is this shit?"
and
It is.
Perfect Days.
The American Friend is. It's dark. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm sure it's listed as like a neo noir or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't. I don't think I even read the back. I saw that there was one copy, and I was like, "Oh, Matt said this is cool, and it's a Vim Vendors. I'm
There you
gonna
go.
watch it."
Done. Done
Yeah,
deal.
done.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
All right, continuing on, a Gus Van Sant movie, Drugstore Cowboy. I've never seen.
Yeah, I have watched that before, but I'm not like a dedicated fan to it or anything. But not because I didn't think it was good. I just, sometimes it's just one of those movies. Sometimes there's movies that you just put on, you watch, you're fine with, and then never go
Mhm.
back to. That was one of those.
Yeah, I've never seen it before, but I watched the trailer for it, and it was giving me Train Spotting vibes,
Mm.
and I just watched that and did a video about that too. So
Yes.
I was like, "Oh, that looks." Are they similar or no?
I don't remember. I don't
Okay.
remember Drugstore Cowboy vividly enough.
All right. Um, Moving on, a Sean Baker movie, an early one, Prince of Broadway.
Yeah, I saw when they put this out. I don't really know what the deal with it is.
Oh,
Whoa.
yep. Yeah, I don't either. Apparently it's from 2008. Um, and that's all I know about it. And it's directed by Sean Baker, so I was like, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I need to watch more of his movies. I liked that Red Rocket movie, but I still haven't even really watched the Florida Project other than catching parts of it, like putting it on streaming or whatever. And then there's this Tangerine or something too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
the only ones I've seen are Anora and Red Rocket too.
I
But
think
I
you made
love both of those. So,
I think you made yourself quiet when you hit your mic or something.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
I said the only ones of his that I've seen actually are Anora and Red Rocket.
Same.
So,
At least in their entirety.
yeah, but I'm excited to look at or to check Prince of
Yeah,
Broadway
you'll
out.
have to let me know how that is.
All right, yeah, it's high on my list, so I might watch it in the next few days. The next one, I've heard you talk about this one before, right? Memories of Murder.
Yeah, I really liked Memories of Murder.
I watched this a couple years ago, I want to say. Um,
Yeah, I
but I
think I
don't really
first saw
remember it though.
you log it or something. I hadn't seen it, and then Zach talked about it too. But in short succession, I saw you log it, and then Zach talked about it or something, and I was like, oh, I guess I need to check this out.
Yeah, there was
And
this like Bong Joon-ho fervor after they won for Parasite.
yeah,
Um, so I started watching some of his other movies. Dude, back in the day, actually, Burton, I remember, brought home The Host, which was a cool one that he
oh
did.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
still never watched that, but that I know that had like a pretty immediate like cult following.
yeah, yeah. It was a good one.
I really
Um,
like Memories of Murder though. It's a pretty big influence, or at least I mean I don't know if this has actually been like spoken about, but it seems like there's a pretty clear influence on David Fincher's Zodiac movie.
yeah, I heard or maybe I read this somewhere in an article, but apparently this is somewhat based on a true story, I think. And I guess at some point the director had thought that there was like a possibility of the murderer actually watching this like in prison or something. I don't remember.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I
Um,
don't know the full story, but it's a really cool narrative structure the way it's put together. It is like a slow burn. It's a great rainy day movie.
yeah. Oh, and the reason why I wanted to pick that up was because I watched that Cure movie that I showed you last episode,
Right.
and I loved it. And it had, I don't know, like a similar murder mystery vibe to it, and um, I don't know, it got me in the mood to rewatch that.
Okay, sweet.
And the last one I got was Lady Snowblood,
Yes.
which is just like a cool action movie, I think. And Quentin Tarantino apparently took heavy inspiration from this when he was making Kill Bill. So
And it's a double, right?
yeah, it's two movies actually, and it was
Yeah.
only $20. So
I have that as well, although I've never watched the two of them. I did put on the first one, didn't really make it all the way through, but it
hmm
wasn't like out of disgust or anything. It's just I wasn't fully vibing with it the day I picked it to put on.
Well,
And
dude, let me just read the first
yeah.
sentence on the back. Just sounds awesome. A young woman trained from childhood as an assassin and hell-bent on revenge for heinous crimes committed against her family, hacks and slashes her way to glorious satisfaction in turn of the 20th century Japan. I don't know. That's up my alley.
Oh yeah, and the influence on Kill Bill pretty clear there.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's what I've got so far.
yeah, so I only did a quick Barnes and Noble order. I told you that I wanted to get that Two Lane Blacktop movie, so I did order that. That was cheaper, I guess, just because it's like an older Blu-ray. And then I grabbed this movie Choose Me, which is a blind buy directed by Alan Rudolph, mostly because I like the cover art.
I saw that in the store, but I hadn't seen it or seen trailers, so
Yeah. I don't know much about it. I don't really know anything about it, but I was like, this looks like a vibe, and it looks like it's my kind of vibe.
yeah.
Um, so, and I think it had a decent letterbox score. That's kind of what I'll do now before blind buys. I'll just like check the letterbox score. Not that
Uh-huh.
it's the end all be all, but I feel a little bit better if it's like in the upper three range.
Yeah. I have
Um,
a weird philosophy on blind buying. Like, there's a bunch of them in there that I thought about getting, like Les Samurai,
yeah,
and just like other ones that I actually have seen. But For me, I feel like I'd rather just spend money on a new experience.
No, I'm kind of
Yeah.
with you too. And I mean, look, there's always going to be ones that I'll just look at and be like, "Yep, getting that."
Yeah.
Like title alone. I mean, sometimes it's even just, the deeper I go with my film knowledge, like sometimes there's just a random connection, like, oh, I recognize the screenwriter, and like no one else. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh, I'm interested in that just based on this one person.
Hmm.
Um, and then the third thing I got was the 4K of The Shape of Water, which was a movie that I liked but wasn't crazy about. But here's the thing, Keith. It did win Best Picture, and I feel like as I go on with this whole collecting shit, like movies that are like important to the history of the movie industry in some way, which I would include all Best Picture winners in some form. I think I'm interested in incorporating into my
Hmm.
collection.
Yeah.
The other part is because it's a 4K. Criterion still has a relatively limited amount of 4Ks, and I'd rather buy the 4Ks at this point because I'll tell you what, I'm not super thrilled with how many Criterion Blu-rays I own that they've upgraded to 4K.
Yeah.
Some of them I've rebought, but like Dazed and Confused, I have not rebought, even though it's one of my favorite movies. But I'm like, I've already owned Dazed and Confused so many
Yeah.
times, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't bring myself to upgrade this. I think maybe Blue Velvet or something. There's a series of them that I'm like, well, this is
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies.
Hmm.
I maybe should upgrade, but I just can't bring myself to. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to keep focused on the ones that are just 4K, unless it seems something obscure enough. Like Two Lane Blacktop, it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting a 4K release anytime, maybe
Yeah.
ever. Now I'll say this, and they'll announce it in the next one. But,
Yeah.
so
On that note, for me though, dude, watching Sorcerer today,
yeah,
I was like, "Oh my God, this looks incredible!" And I just have the Blu-ray, so just like the color palette and like
I
everything, all the
know.
jungle colors, it looks so good. I kind of wish maybe I would have got the 4K, but even the Blu-ray just looks incredible.
Look, sometimes the Blu-ray experience is good enough, especially these Criterion scans. Like they have some that like I'm like I don't need anything better than this.
Yeah, yeah,
So both you and I did get out to the theater, I believe. I don't want to speak
uh-huh.
for you, but I'm pretty sure you did for 28 weeks later, right?
Yeah. Did
Or
you guys end
sorry,
up going to see it or no?
28 years later, as if that's not confusing.
Yeah.
I did see it. I saw it with Zach and another friend.
I'm curious to know what you think about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think, Keith, because we do a show about movies, and why not share my thoughts on it? Uh, so I was really excited about it in a way that, well, really excited. It's hard for me to say I'm really excited about anything. I'm really excited about doing Jaws for this show. Very few things like excite me in the world, but I thought the trailer for 28 Years Later was awesome. Like,
Dude, the whatever that song was, or just
yeah, that's
weird music, like
it's like a
chanting.
poem or something that's
Yeah.
being spoken. It's like spoken word with like this intense,
Hmm.
uh, I don't know, tune
It
to
almost
it.
sounded like a radio broadcast or something too.
Yeah.
There was like a weird, I don't know.
Um, but it just looked so intense, and I actually felt like the first act of the movie replicated that. Like, this is what I was expecting it to be.
Hmm.
Then the second and third acts are like a little bit different. like,
Yeah.
um, so I loved the first act. The second act where it's like the kid is deciding to, and we're gonna do this without spoiling much, but like the kid basically decides he's gonna go back into this area where it's not good, and he's taking his mom, and I'm just like, I was having a hard time buying this. I'm like, really? Like, you're
Yeah.
gonna go back there after after what you experienced in the first act?
After one outing and not doing too good of a job.
Yeah. So that was like a little bit tough for me to buy the story. Um, but I like when they meet the other like soldier dude, and he's just kind of like goofy, and they like introduce this weird element of like
Mhm.
comedy that you weren't really
I
expecting.
know. That kind of took me by surprise as well. Because you saw in the trailers, I think you saw a couple shots of the military dudes with
Yeah.
their helmets on, with the lights and everything, and I was like, okay, there will be at least some modern stuff in here, because
Right.
all the other stuff in the trailers was just showing people running around with bows and arrows and stuff. But Yeah, I really liked the comedic relief that that character brought, though, for
That
sure.
was fun. And then the way that like the final act ends of the movie, it's like goes into something completely different, which is obviously like, I mean, it bookends the movie well because it's like bringing back to where you were in the opening
Yeah,
with this kid and the Teletubbies. They were
yeah,
a part of it, but like the tone is weird.
yeah.
Like
Even
it's
the Ray Fiennes character was not really what I was expecting. I think I was expecting his character to just be different than what he
yeah,
was. Yeah.
agreed, agreed. So there was a lot of unexpected moments in the movie, I guess, that I didn't really feel like I was in love with, but I didn't hate. Um,
Hmm.
but I would say my favorite segment of the movie was the first part, which is
Hmm.
I guess that's what I was expecting the movie to be like.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
agree. I really liked yeah, like you said, probably like the first third or maybe a little bit more of that.
mhm.
Um, just because it did feel more like the first two movies where it's,
Yeah,
just a survival zombie movie, and I love that kind of stuff.
yeah. I loved the original, like 28 Days Later. 28 Weeks Later, I barely remember. I do remember that it was well liked. I remember it was sort of like a surprise
Hmm.
that like people liked it. Um,
Yeah.
but I
I
don't
liked
remember
it.
it well.
It was definitely more action heavy. Like you had Jeremy Renner's character, and it was all about like the Americans came in and they were trying to like repopulate
Yeah.
England or London or wherever they were. Um,
I
and it,
remember Jeremy. Well, I remember this. I remember not knowing who Jeremy Renner was. I think like Jeremy Renner, Rose Byrne, Imogen Poots are all in it. Had
Mhm.
no idea who any of the three of them were at that time
Yeah,
period.
it turned out to be a like killer cast.
Yeah, even though, but they were unknowns at the time,
Yeah, for sure.
at
Yeah.
least mostly. But I really want to revisit 28 Days Later because I haven't seen it in so long now.
Hmm.
But I loved that movie like when we were in high
Yeah.
school.
I rewatched it on VHS. I showed you I got the VHS. I rewatched
Yeah.
it. I think it was right before I went to see 28 Years Later, and it holds up. I still really liked
Oh,
it.
cool. Yeah. I know you were going over. I always have known that you're like a big Sunshine fan. I have a
Hmm.
DVD of Sunshine. I'm pretty sure I still have it, but I don't really remember it. I only ever watched it like one time. But again, it wasn't because I didn't like it. I don't know. It was just one of those movies that
Yeah.
I just didn't give that much of a chance to, or didn't revisit that many times. But I've always known you to be a fan. I know it has like a following. Like people really like
Yeah.
Sunshine.
Yeah, that's tied with Trainspotting to be my favorite Danny Boyle movie.
So I actually am one of the people. Well, maybe there's not that many of them. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's not that many of them. I kind of like The Beach too. I don't think it's not a well-regarded movie. Like, I don't think it
Yeah.
has good reviews at all. I think the reviews were terrible for it. But something about that time period, like late '90s, like a young DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Alex Garland wrote it,
Hmm.
which obviously is the same. It's the same creative team for this. Train Spotting, I don't have the Criterion for. I just haven't ever fully um, gotten into the Train Spotting world, but I think it's mostly because the idea of heroin and hard drugs just kind of freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, I talked about this a little bit in a recent video I made, but a lot of the movie is played for laughs. Like it has this fun, energetic feel to it, and it's pretty quick. It's fast paced,
Yeah.
but there are at least two or three very dark moments
Oh.
related to heroin. But um,
Did you ever watch
yeah,
the sequel?
I actually have not seen T2 yet.
So
Yeah.
I did watch it once. And I thought it was okay. I didn't think it really quite, even as someone who's not a dues paying member of the Train Spotting fan club, I was like, this. I mean, it's weird that this has a sequel, and you know that going
Yeah.
in. It's
It kind of came and went too, which is why I think I haven't watched it because I
yeah,
don't remember hearing many people talk about it when it did come out.
yeah. I'll have to do. I'm just gonna have to do like a Train Spotting day in my life where I really give the first one another full shot, and then
Hmm.
um watch the second one too, just because it's like it exists and you have to.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, okay. Anything else? You went to see
Um,
Kevin Smith, right?
yeah, we're already like 25 minutes in now, and
That's
we
okay.
talked
Let's
about
do Kevin
doing quick.
Smith and
So
then
I'll
break.
just say real. I can just say real quick. I went to see the Aural Sects tour
Yeah.
with Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, and it was awesome. It was basically like a duo stand-up comedy routine. Um, I guess I was kind of expecting them to tell more stories about the making of some of their movies, but really it was just a stand-up comedy routine where they were mostly talking about their families, and Jason Mewes talking about just raising his two kids or whatever, and they
Was
were
it?
joking about how they have skins in Call of Duty now, and
Oh, fun. Was
um,
it Q&A at all, or?
there wasn't a Q&A, but at the end of the show they did do a funny thing where they had people from the crowd try out to play a part, to play Alan Rickman's part from
Dogma?
Dogma,
Fun.
and they just read through like a section of the script together, and all these different people like put their hands up and they came out and like had them try out, and we all just like cheered for who we wanted to hear do it. And the person who got the loudest cheers and ended up doing it was doing a Cartman impersonation.
Oh, wow.
So basically we heard Cartman as Metatron or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You,
it was fun though, it was cool.
I saw Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier in Madison with
Oh yeah,
Travis and Burton and stuff. Yeah.
I actually
Um,
saw Travis this weekend and he brought that up.
yeah. That was fun. I don't know what he said about it, but it was pretty funny the show we went to. He ended up hosting it as like a Smodcast episode.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, let's take a quick break and get into segments.
Okay, Matt, it's time to talk about our blind buys or still in the shrink wrap segment. So, what did you pick?
Okay, this week for me, I picked from the Warner Archive To Have and Have Not, which is based off an Ernest Hemingway novel directed by Howard Hawks, which I'll get more into that in a second. But I had purchased the novel when I was in Key West, famous Ernest Hemingway residence area, and I bought this novel there at a bookstore because they said, well, the one story that kind of takes place a little bit in Key West in this area is To Have and Have Not, which heavily takes place in Cuba, actually. But there is Key West in it. And I bought the movie, was thinking, well, I'll read the book, and then I'll watch the movie. But I held off on watching the movie because, um, I was like, well, I want to finish the book first. It turns out no need because the movie is nothing like the book. It's uh, like almost completely different, other than Humphrey Bogart plays a character of the same name. It's actually, they're saying that it takes place earlier in time. So there's this weird backstory of the movie where Howard Hawks was friends with Hemingway, and he was like, I'd love it if you wrote a screenplay or something. All of your books can be adapted into greatness, except for To Have and Have Not. He was like, that one sucks or whatever. And Hemingway, I don't know, took it as a challenge or something, and worked on some version of a script for it, but it eventually gets rewritten by William Faulkner. But like I said, it's really not like the book at all. It becomes, there's this whole love story. It doesn't, instead of taking place in Cuba, it takes place in some like French occupied island with a hotel heavily involved. And you're almost like, wait a second, this is Casablanca. Like it's so weird. Like it's bizarre because like the more and more you get into it, you're just like, this feels like it's trying to capitalize off the success of Casablanca, but it is kind of good and kind of fun too. And Bogart and Lauren Bacall. I mean, Bogart's like one of these guys that seems very old timey in all these old movies, um, in a way that I feel like Jimmy Stewart kind of does too, in some of the Hitchcock stuff, where there's just like this old timey acting style. But sometimes I'm here for it, and in this case, I am. Um, and as Katie Crutchfield once wrote about me, Keith, I get choked up reading the classics, and so I was happy to see an adaptation. And real quick, Madison story. Speaking of Katie Crutchfield, of course, of Waxahachie, I saw her play in Madison at the
Oh yeah.
Frequency when I was there one time. You weren't there. This was during an era when you weren't living there,
Hmm.
and it was the reason I had gone out. I wanted to see her there, and then I was like, well, obviously to visit the friends too. But I had told like everybody that, yeah, I'm planning on going to the show. It was like $8 or something. You know what I mean? It was like super
Uh-huh.
cheap, and you could just buy tickets like there, I think too. Um, And everybody's like, yeah, we'll go. So I hang out for days. We go out drinking every night, several nights spent at the Comeback Inn, of course, famous Madison drinking hole. And we get to the night of the show, and it's like on a Sunday night, and everybody's like, yeah, I don't have it in me. I'm not going. And I was like, gonna have to go to this show by myself. But one, Nick, Papa Fandry, volunteered to go with me. And I was like, Nick, thank you, Nick. Now, this is a man who, at the time, like, only drank straight Budweiser and smoked Marb Reds. And yeah, I mean, I consider Katie Crutchfield to be one of the great songwriters of the last 20 years, but you could make an argument that her music is girly. Yeah, you could do that. But luckily, Keith, also on the bill, Screaming Females.
Oh, hell yeah.
And they brought the house down, and they played first, and Fandra was like, damn, I need to go smoke a cigarette after that. And, we went out and took a few puffs of Marb Reds, I'm sure, and then went back in and watched Waxahachie, and afterwards he was like, dude, I'm not going to lie, if it wasn't for Screaming Females, that would have been like a girly show. And I was like, well, thanks for coming, man.
That's the total Fandry quote there.
Yeah. Sorry I didn't ride my Harley to the show, but...
I saw Waxahachie play once in Tampa.
Yeah.
And I want to say I saw Screaming Females play with J-Bomb once in Ithaca, I think.
I also saw Screaming Females with J-Bomb, so...
Maybe... were we there together?
No. He came to Pittsburgh. We
okay.
Saw them at a venue that's like straight down the hill from my house, actually.
I could be misremembering.
But yeah, a lot of Madison live events tie-ins to this episode. So that's the have and have not. It's a Hemingway novel that basically got turned into Casablanca.
Nice.
I do miss Warner Archives. Like they sell, you can still buy their stuff on Prime, but they used to have fun sales. Their stuff is very bare bones, but you can get a lot of old classic like fun movies from them.
Yeah, I have a handful of their Blu-rays.
Yeah, they're not on your list that you won't buy.
No, they're not. They're plastic. They're not steel.
All right, Keith. Well, I know you've been waiting for this moment for maybe your whole life. So why don't you tell us what you're still in shrink wrap?
Probably not going to get too many other opportunities to talk about Deep Blue Sea on the microphone.
Well, not until we spotlight it.
This is probably my second favorite shark movie.
Yeah.
To Jaws.
And maybe the prized possession of your collection.
Probably, yes. I was going to say, you brought up the Before trilogy being the crown jewel of your collection.
It's one of them.
This might be the crown jewel of my collection. Cream of the crop.
Absolutely.
But I just love this movie because the setup is so ridiculous, but to me it still makes sense.
Same.
It's like sci-fi horror, I feel like it's Jaws meets Alien kind of, because they're stuck on this scientific research vessel, and the sharks are kind of coming in and trying to kill them as if it was like the alien from Alien.
Yeah. Isn't the backstory they're working on like a clinical trial of a drug that's made to cure Alzheimer's, and they're testing it on sharks?
Yeah, so these scientists are all operating this facility trying to figure out a cure for Alzheimer's, and his name's Saffron Burrows is kind of like the lead. This actually has a pretty good cast too. I mean, Saffron Burrows, she's not like a super big actress, but
she was around during that time though, and I feel like she's one of those people that you're like, I feel like we could have had a little bit more of.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah, and she's pretty good in this. We also have Thomas Jane, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Rappaport, Stellan Skarsgård, Jacqueline McKenzie, LL Cool J,
hell yeah,
and Ada Turturro from Sopranos.
Yeah. I didn't remember her being in it.
She has kind of a small role. She's like up in the operations tower or something, and she gets taken out kind of early on.
Gotcha.
Like so a helicopter crashes into the facility, which is like kind of what kicks off the building like falling apart. But she's up there when that happens.
So like this drug is making the sharks smart.
Yeah, so they're not supposed to be doing a certain thing. Like they're not supposed to be messing with their genes or something, I think. And they do it anyways, and that's what actually makes them smart.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's some super memorable deaths in this movie.
Absolutely.
Uh, Two in particular just come out of nowhere. I don't really want to spoil it just because I don't know. I feel like there's probably some people out there who still haven't seen this movie.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to spoil it, but and I won't spoil it then either. But let's just say the part. I mean, is so. The first time I ever saw it as sort of a younger lad. What year did this come out? What do you have it on the back of your
99.
99? And I probably saw it in 99, like, or maybe 2000, like on HBO or something. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it like that first run when it went to rental or HBO or whatever. And that the part, I
Yeah.
was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it comes like in the middle of a speech.
Yeah. It's
Somebody,
that,
we'll just say somebody's giving a speech, and they get taken out.
to me, that is worth the ticket price. Like
Absolutely.
for that scene alone.
It's one of the most memorable movie moments for me, I swear. Like,
Yeah.
I know
And
this isn't like anything highbrow. Like, this is almost like an exploitation movie, but
well, I sort of feel like it's one of the many things that kind of paved the way towards where we'd eventually get with Snakes on a Plane.
yeah.
Like, it's sort of this idea, and then like even maybe I guess even a more condensed version, like our cheesier version even is like the Sharknado stuff, but like it was this. I mean, because the premise seems straight out of a Sci-Fi Channel movie.
Yeah, it seems so ridiculous, but to me, I mean, it makes sense. It's like something that seems like could
I'm here
actually
for it.
happen.
Listen,
But the movie, based on the premise, when you hear it,
I'm like,
you probably
yeah.
think this movie is gonna suck, but it is way better than it has any right to be.
Listen, I'm here for it. I will watch it again anytime. It's been a long time. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it for this, but I totally would. Like, I would definitely put on Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, dude, and I was thinking about this too. Like around this time period, LL Cool J was kind of like a scream queen.
Absolutely, yeah. Halloween H2O.
Yeah, there was another one too, and I can't remember, but yeah, between those two alone, those are like high up for my, favorite 90s, early 2000s horror movies.
All right. Anything else for Deep Blue Sea?
Nope, that's it. Maybe we'll
Okay.
maybe we'll do it as a spotlight.
I
If I
hope
can
so.
talk you
Yeah.
into it in like 10 years if we're still doing this.
It won't take that long. It won't take us that long to get it to your favorite movie.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Yeah. Quick break and back with Jaws.
Yep, let's do it. Okay, we're back, and Matt's gone, but Richard Dreyfuss is here.
In the house.
Hooper, he's in the house. Hooper in the house.
You got
What's
any
up?
better suggestions?
Oh man, this is great. I love this situation that's going on now.
Well, before I get into the intro, there was one Halloween where I wanted me, you, and Dave to be Hooper, Quint, and Brody, because you look like Quint, basically. I was like, I looked like Richard Dreyfuss, and Dave definitely can do Brody.
Oh yeah, I was I was telling Travis about this last weekend, and I told them that you wanted me to be Quint, and they were like, "No, dude, you're totally Hooper." I think
I could see you being a Hooper too, but I think you're like of you and me. I think you'd be the closer one to Quint.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think it's just because I actually just wear this black beanie all the time.
I mean, you could definitely be a Hooper, but I think I just
My
think,
personality is definitely more Quint.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You're just like killing sharks. Okay. All right. You tell me when you're ready.
All right, yeah, let's tell the people what we're gonna talk about.
Very well. Recently, Keith and I had a discussion on identifying our favorite movie, or more specifically, the inability to do so. I've long identified as a movie person, but when someone asks me which one is top of my list, I break down in sheer panic. Determined to have a stock answer to this question, I sat down and started listing out the movies that immediately came to mind as candidates. My first pass was to make a top 10 list. Immediately, I was at 18. Okay, 25 then. I hit 31. Steven Spielberg, Alfred Hitchcock, Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, the Coen brothers, Ridley Scott, and David Lynch all had multiple entries on the list. All right, what if I institute a one movie per director rule to whittle down the list? David Lynch, probably my favorite director. Okay, what's my favorite Lynch? Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me? A bead of sweat formed at the top of my brow. I can't. Okay, let's try Tarantino. What do I like more, Jackie Brown or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Defeated, I walked away from the exercise. One question I do feel incredibly comfortable with is, what is collectively the favorite movie of Return to Videotech? The answer to that question is a resounding Jaws. Steven Spielberg's second theatrical film changed the movie industry forever with the launch of the Hollywood blockbuster. It has everything you'd want from an entertainment standpoint. Thrills, characters both lovable and strange, on-location shooting in Martha's Vineyard to give the setting an authentic feel, and an iconic John Williams score. In addition, the film has a rich making-of story that illustrates just how special it is for all the elements to come together at the right times and places and culminate in something truly timeless. Endlessly quotable, some of the famous lines were improvised, like Chief Brody's "You're gonna need a bigger boat," which was not originally in the script. In addition, much of Quint's dialect came from a real guy that lived on Martha's Vineyard, Craig Kingsbury, who was cast to play local fisherman Bed Gardner. Lines like, "It's not like going down to the pond chasing bluegills and tommycods," came from Kingsbury. Jaws notably cut a lot from Peter Benchley's source novel, including tons of character backstory and a Matt Hooper, Ellen Brody sexual rendezvous, much to the chagrin of actress Lorraine Gary, by the way. But it's perfect. The movie gives you all you need, and you can easily fill in the rest. Jaws would be the first major motion picture to be filmed on the open sea, which presented no shortage of challenges, running way over schedule and filming lasting 6 to 7 months. During which time Spielberg never left the island, by the way, showing his unwavering commitment to the project and getting it right. Perhaps it's been unfair to Spielberg's legacy that the film is most associated with big-time summer financial success. Yes, the man knows how to make a hit, but there is some depth here as well, exploring the dark sides of capitalism, symbols of our political parties, and the ever-interesting battle of man versus nature. As is often the case, it's the story that drives, but Spielberg's work with themes rarely gets the recognition it deserves. I'm going to keep this brief, as it would be truly villainous of me to go deep on these topics without giving our hero Keith a chance to weigh in. So, let's crack open a Narragansett and dive into the banner film of Return to Videotech, Jaws. What do you think, Keith?
I think that was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Would you agree with me that it's like I don't know if Jaws is my favorite movie. I don't think you know if Jaws is your favorite movie. Maybe you know it isn't. But I feel like collectively this show's favorite movie.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I feel like we talked about how we have like anxiety attacks when people ask us, "What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite 5 movies? What's your favorite 10 movies?"
Yeah.
This is always one of the first things that does come to mind, though. It's in that realm. So I don't know if I feel comfortable saying 100% this is my favorite movie, but I mean I do have a freaking tattoo of it on my arm.
Absolutely, you'll love to see it.
It says, "Here's to swimming with bow-legged women."
Yes. What a line.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. Look, I don't know what my favorite is, and making the list is tough, but this is always on the list. No matter what version of the list I'm doing, this is on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And getting ready for this show, I watched my Steelbook version of it, the dreaded Keith Steelbook.
Did you get the new one? I do really like the artwork on the new one.
No.
Oh, that's an older one, yeah.
I have this one, and
that's so cool.
Yeah. Although I will say the 4K skips, just like I have that problem with a lot of them. So I think I switched to the Blu-ray halfway through. But I also watched it streaming on Peacock right now because that is the 50th anniversary one. Not that there's anything different about the movie, but Spielberg does a little intro. So I did watch it on Peacock too. And it's never a hardship for me to watch this movie in short succession again. Like Lindsay and I pretty much watch it every 4th of July. Obviously this summer we watched it a little bit earlier, but I watched it a few times to get ready and just kept kind of putting it back on, and it's never a challenge for me to watch this movie, Keith.
Yeah, on Friday I put it on and I ended up falling asleep maybe halfway through, like before they get on the boat and go out on their adventure.
Yeah.
But like I said, I passed out, so I ended up rewatching it yesterday. And yeah, no qualms whatsoever. I was like, I could just pick it back up from the middle, but no, I want to watch the beginning again.
I know. Well, it really is a movie of two halves too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like all the stuff that takes place in Amity in the first half feels like its own movie, and then the second half, when they're on the Orca, is like, I just the second part, but it feels
Yeah.
like a separate movie almost.
Yeah, yeah. The second half almost feels like a smaller indie movie or something, even though if you know anything about the production, it was like a total disaster, everything that they
hell.
shot on the water. So I'm sure that took up like 2/3 of the shooting schedule that, you know, they talk about this a lot in like special features, or like if you watch the
Yeah.
making of documentary, there's a pretty famous one that you can watch like on YouTube. Um, but it was supposed to be like a 75-day shoot or something, or a 60 to 70-day shoot or something, and it ended up being twice that.
Oh yeah, I mean it was like 7 months long.
Yeah.
And they were so they filmed it on Martha's Vineyard. They could have filmed it. The movie technically, obviously, Amity is a fictional town, but it's meant to be set in like off the coast of Long Island or whatever, because Brody comes from New York City. There's a whole history with him as a police officer that they don't get into. It's alluded to in the movie. That's all you need. You get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get the Brody character. You get this life that he's trying to live. You get what he's escaping from. You get all that with just like a few lines of dialogue. But ultimately, they picked Martha's Vineyard because they had built this giant mechanical shark thing that needed to be, I guess, not propelled, but it's connected to something right at the bottom, and in off the coast of Martha's Vineyard was the only like little island that they could find where they could go out to sea a little bit. And
I think it was only like 35 feet deep or something, they said.
yeah,
So
they found
they
a spot
could,
with they found a spot where you could go out. There would still be a sandy bottom that they could put the bottom of the machine on, but when you looked all around the boat, you couldn't see land. All right, so with Jaws, look, it starts off iconic right away. You get the opening credits. It's the score. It's the John Williams score, the famous one. And when you see the introduction of the cast, they give us all three names at once: Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss. This is the movie of three men, you know? Like, Roy Scheider playing Chief Brody seems like the obvious lead role, and I think probably anyone watching this movie, you would walk away and say Brody was the main character, right? I mean, you just feel that way.
yeah, I think he gets the most screen time, and he's introduced first. So,
Well, yeah, but like for the credits, they give you all three names like equally.
yeah, I mean, I think each one of them is equally important for sure.
Agreed. Totally agree. John Williams score, of course. This was a guy who had been around working for a while, but this is what like would really propel him to be the John Williams that we know today. Of course, I can't remember if Star Wars: A New Hope was 77 or 70. I think it was 77. So 2 years after this, and you know, there's no looking back for him after this. But the dun 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 dun. I mean, it's just everyone recognizes it. Everyone knows it.
I do think it's safe to say that this is the most iconic score of a movie for sure.
Certainly.
Like, I mean, Star Wars maybe contends with it a little bit, but I think more people probably know the Jaws
I would say
than Star Wars.
and there's something to like the simplicity of it too that's just so perfect. And you'll go on later in the movie, right? And it goes, you get a little bit more of the like heroic John Williams scores, maybe even a little like the whimsical John Williams score elements a little bit later on, but the main Jaws theme, which by the way they actually really only play when Jaws is in the mix. There's other parts in the water where they do fake outs and there's not actually Jaws. There's people with fins or whatever, but the Jaws
I
theme
actually wanted
doesn't
to.
play.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I actually just wanted to bring up, since we're talking about the score right now, I think one of my favorite parts is when Hooper and Brody go out at night on their first time, and it's like a very whimsical thing, and you see
Yeah.
like the light shining through the boat that had been attacked by Bruce.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just love, that's like one of my favorite parts of all the music in the whole movie.
Yeah. No, that part is pretty solid. Yeah, you mentioned Bruce. I am I'm sort of in the Roy Scheider camp on this. He made a quote. He said something during the making of that I watched that he was like, I won't call him that. I never have, and I never will. And I feel like I'm in the Roy Scheider camp on this. Like I sort of like, I feel like calling the shark Bruce sort of personifies him a little bit, and I like just thinking of the shark as just this villain, this scary thing that is foreboding. And
Yeah.
I don't like.
Don't they name, isn't the shark's name in Finding Nemo Bruce or something?
That
It's kind
might
of
be.
silly.
Yeah, I don't know Finding Nemo well enough, but that would, I mean, that's funny.
I think that might be a callback.
I'm
I'm
sure.
pretty
I'm
sure
sure.
it is. Yeah.
I'm just looking at this Narragansett can. It says "Crush It Like Quint 50th anniversary." That's so good.
I'm sure we'll get to it, because are we going to go through the plot? Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
one of my
okay,
favorite parts, the can crush and then the coffee cup crush.
so after the brief opening credit sequence, we start off on the beach with young kids partying on the beach. There's like a fire going on. They're drinking. It looks fun. I'm like, what's fun as a young person, having a couple beers, hanging out with a big group of friends. But boy, it seems like it would have been really fun on like an island. I wish we
Yeah,
could
I
have.
was thinking about this. I was like, we definitely went to parties like this, but not on the beach.
Yeah, right. I certainly don't recall any interest in skinny dipping. I don't
I
remember
went
like.
skinny dipping a few times.
Well, yeah, but with women in the mix.
I think at least once or twice.
Good for you.
Did you remember at Sarah Marchese's
Yeah.
pond?
Yes, I remember being in that pond. I remember a lot of dudes being at that pond. So the guy that the camera's focused on, I don't know who he is, a young kid's having a time. He catches the eye of some girl. She leads him to the water. One of my favorite shots in the movie is like this rolling shot along the hill with the tattered fence as they're like heading towards a secluded part of the beach so that they can go skinny dipping. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Hmm.
That shot is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
and they get to the beach. He has had too much to drink and just can't get it together. She's not going to let it stop her good time. Insert any story from my life, me just falling asleep while something cool happens.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. And like in terms of relatability, I mean, you know this about me, like falling asleep, going to sleep early, not being able to make it to the part of the night where something cool happened.
Just fumbling the bag.
Time and time again. But it's okay, Keith. You know what? At the end of my life, I'll look back and said, God damn if I didn't sleep well, though. So he's asleep, and we have our first encounter with the shark. You don't see it. You just see her get pulled down. It's scary. This enough, I think, would have scared people about getting into the water. I mean, the big thing about this movie was what they set out to do was let's make people afraid to get in the water. And I think that they did that for generations.
Oh, yeah. This opening scene is pretty scary. And a fun fact about this movie, it's rated PG, right?
Yeah, I believe this preceded PG-13 existing.
And it starts off with a naked woman being viciously attacked by a shark.
Now, to be fair, I don't think you could see any nudity in the original cuts. It was like more like silhouette, but I will say the 4K
it is like
experience
silhouetted, but
yeah,
I just think for a PG movie, that's pretty intense.
No, totally agree. I I do think that the 4K experience may give you a little bit more detail than they were originally intending.
Yeah.
So it's just as time goes on, things that were more obscured are becoming more clear, and I guess that's probably just wasn't what the people performing in these movies had in mind. They weren't thinking that this was going to be, the clarity was going to be cranked up
Yeah.
on these things. So
4K Ultra HD.
yeah, she is killed. It's kind of horrific. Like she's saying like please God. I think the actress was who was actually a stunt woman. The either the note or her idea was going to be like to say the Lord's Prayer, but then she like didn't actually know it. So something. So that's why she just is like saying like oh God please. Um, so we cut to the next morning, and it's actually quietly one of my favorite little moments of the movie is uh, Chief Brody and his wife, played by Lorraine Gary, who I think is like super well cast. I love her as the wife in this movie.
Yeah,
Um,
their relationship is awesome. The way they play off each other is great. And I did hear, I think you said this earlier, but a lot of it was, or some of it at least, was ad libbed.
yeah, listen, they were doing a lot of doctoring of the dialogue like throughout the production.
Hmm.
There's a lot of improvisation going on. And then there's just stuff that, like I said, there was that dude that just lived on Martha's Vineyard who Spielberg like grew to really like, and they cast him as Ben Gardner or whatever. And they were like, I think Spielberg was like, if I didn't get Robert Shaw, I would have just had this guy play Quint. Like
Yeah.
they just kept taking things that guy was saying and like putting it into the dialogue of the movie.
Yeah.
But I love when they just wake up on their little house on Amity, and the sun's coming through, and he's like, there's something that feels so authentic about that scene to me.
Hmm.
Like it just reminds me of waking up on a summer day or being on the beach or whatever. But like the fact that he's like, well, what happened? I don't remember the sun rising up and being woken up by the sun. And she's like, well, we bought this house in the fall. So like the sun was rising on the other side or whatever was going on. But I just think that this part really feels authentic. And
Yeah.
there's a
And
lot
their
of
their kids are
authentic.
already outside playing and stuff.
Yeah.
It's
That,
very fun family. Like it feels like they're on vacation even though they're not on vacation.
right. This is where they live. This is their lives. And they do a little kind of making fun of the Boston accent thing, which is weird because you're like I think they're supposed to be off the coast of Long Island, even though Martha's Vineyard is off the coast of Massachusetts and it is New England. I didn't think that's where they're actually supposed to be, but they keep it vague. It's Amity, which of course means friendship, as you know, Keith. Um,
Exactly.
but he wakes up and he's got a call and he leaves the house to go to the beach where they've found the dead girl. And we find me, if I had been a cop, the person who found the body just crying and blowing a whistle. Someone who can really handle it.
People often talk about how some of the special effects and stuff like look goofy with the shark and whatnot. I don't really think too much of the shark stuff looks bad, even watching it in HD now. But
Yeah,
when he pulls the hand up, that's like ripped. That definitely looks like a rubber fake hand to me. The
sure,
arm.
sure. Um, I barely have a hint of complaints about the look of anything in this movie. I mean, things look the way I want them to look for the most part. I
Uh,
do think seeing the shark a little bit more in HD, it's a little bit diminished. Like the experience is a little, just slightly. Like I think
yeah,
Blu-ray is better for that. Like,
yeah.
um,
Well, I only have the Blu-ray, so I don't have the 4K. Maybe I'll just stick with the Blu-ray then.
yeah. Listen, I don't want to act like for a second it ruins it for me at all, though. No, not the case. I was just like, okay, I can see it a little bit more in the 4K. And here's the
Mhm.
thing: I would deny myself anyway. I'd be like, no, I don't see anything. It looks the way I want it to look, because I love this movie. They find the dead girl. Brody immediately goes to like, all right, we got to shut down the beach, and now we have a conflict because the whole island is funded by people coming to visit during the summer and spending all of their hard-earned cash at these little tourist trap shops and the arcade. And this is the time where they make hay. This is where they get all their business. And Brody's just like, well, we have to shut down the beach. This girl was clearly viciously attacked and killed by a shark, and we don't want that happening to more people. So let's shut this shit down. And we got a problem.
Mayor Vaughn thinks differently.
So now meet Mayor Vaughn. I believe the actor's name is Murray Hamilton. I don't have
Yep,
the
I have the IMDb.
yeah,
IMDb
please.
pulled up. Yeah, it's Murray Hamilton.
Murray Hamilton in a movie of almost perfect casting across the board. I don't know if it gets more perfect than Murray Hamilton as Mayor Vaughn. I mean, the expressions, the way he carries himself, that jacket, the jacket with the anchors on it, and how bad I need to own that, Keith.
Yeah, it's funny. When I used to watch this movie as a kid, I used to like hate his character so much. And while I do still dislike him, like he's supposed to be disliked, I think you kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit more the older you get.
You do get it, right? And look, I hit on the intro, but the big thing of the movie is, capitalism. And look, there's a lot of great things to capitalism, but the bad part of it is like when it goes unchecked or when people start valuing the money element more than people's lives. And whatever other moral things you want to bring to it. I mean, there's tons of arguments to be made, but like ultimately what this movie is showing us is where these two things brush up against each other. Like, yes, this is how we make money. This is how we can make the most money that we possibly can. But at what expense? And the certain people are like, well, as long as I can make money, I don't care who's eaten by a shark. And that's kind of the attitude. But it's more like being portrayed as an ignorance, right? Like, we've never had a shark attack here. It must have been a barracuda, whatever. Like,
I do think that's one of the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, as like you see, like the political pressures. I mean, even though it's a small ecosystem on the island, the person who gave the original autopsy or whatever was like, yeah, I think it's a shark attack, and then it's like he's like getting leaned on basically by Mayor Vaughn and the other people, and he's like, nah, I mean, it could have been a boating accident.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I feel like that's one of the best parts about this movie, though, is how it brings those things up, like the political stuff. But it's not. I mean, it is in your face, but it's not like the focus of the movie. The movie overall is really just this like horror adventure movie.
Absolutely.
The political part is really just kind of a small part of the movie, and I feel like nowadays when you get stuff like this, that is like the focus of the movie.
Well,
and that's why I think that's part of why this movie holds up. People don't get annoyed by that as much.
Yeah, it's great that you're saying that, because a while ago, and I tried to touch on this in the intro a little bit, where it's like, I feel like Spielberg has unfairly kind of been categorized as this guy who could just make like great big blockbuster movies for entertainment value, and not necessarily someone who has like a lot of depth to his movies. I just think there's a subtlety to it.
Yeah, he definitely does it with nuance, and he does it in a way that's not abrasive,
Yeah, I think so too. A while back, I read Stephen King's book on writing, which is just him. It's a little bit of autobiography, but it's just kind of his ideas about writing and what drives him. And one of the big things that he focuses on reminded me of this movie, and he's just like, it's story first always. And you can see that in Stephen King's like the things that have been adapted by Stephen King. Like the story, like in his opinion, there are themes that will come out, right? Like there's themes that are in the story, but like it's story first. And that's what I think about Jaws. I think this movie is story first, and it's got these like kind of capitalism, a little bit of like the political structure of both Amity and maybe like, I mean, obviously a lot of these things have shifted over time, but I think you can kind of make some arguments that like Quint kind of like represents like the old Republican background, and Hooper represents like the old Democratic background. We've seen those
Absolutely.
things change a lot over time, and then at some point it just became that like if you're a politician, you represent the wealthy. Like
Yeah.
it kind of doesn't matter. Like, but I do think that there is some of that there. At least, or you could take it to like the working class versus the rich, whatever way you want to look at it. But it's like Hooper's not really, even though he's rich, he's not portrayed as like a bad guy in any way.
I'm sure we'll get to this too when we get to eventually when the whole scene with the scars where they're comparing
Yeah.
scars and stuff. I feel like that's kind of like one of the best parts about the movie too is like because Quint and Hooper are so different and they're at each other's throats
Yes.
up until that point. That's like a coming together moment of like the two different people from different backgrounds.
Yep.
Hooper's like a rich dude from college educated and Quint is like he's a dock worker or a
Yeah,
shark
absolutely.
hunter. He's like an ex military guy.
And
But
isn't
that's one of the best parts about the movie is like the bringing them together.
totally. And I mean, there's nothing more galvanizing than being in the face of death.
Yeah,
It's easy to be on the same side as anybody. But yes, I'm just saying like this is clearly a movie where it's like there's a story. Spielberg wants to execute the telling of that story very well, and that's the most important thing. But there are these little themes woven in, and I don't think that they're, I don't think that's by mistake. I just think he's not hitting you over the head with it.
yeah, absolutely, 100% agree.
But Keith, this being the capitalist society, even in this little ecosystem, we need to keep these beaches open to avoid a panic on the 4th of July. So at this point, Brody has succumbed to Mayor Vaughn and the other political powers in town, and they're going to keep the beaches open. But he's going to stake out the beach, right? He's got his family down there. Let's just keep an eye on things. And I think from a directorial artistic choice standpoint, this may be the coolest camera work sequence, just because we're flipping back and forth. We're getting like a shot of Brody sitting on the beach, then it switches to his perspective and it's looking at whatever, a lady in the water, back to a shot of Brody, back to his perspective, like the little Kittner boy or whatever. And it's doing that for a few things. And when it's in his perspective, you're also seeing like people walk by, like walk in and out of the shot, like as if they're walking through his line of vision, and everything's a little on edge because he thinks he sees something and maybe not. And then he's like, okay. And then we have that little Kittner boy on that raft in one of the cooler blood moments, I think, maybe of any movie ever, because it's like very quick. You don't see a ton of what's going on, but you just see the water become like a puddle of blood.
Oh yeah, and that's like the beginnings of what people always talk about. That kind of a lot of horror people or other horror directors kind of took inspiration or just went to Spielberg's school of filmmaking by not showing the shark, even though it's come out that the shark wasn't working, so they obviously wanted to show it more. But this is the beginnings of like, oh, you don't actually see that much, like you said. But that's what makes it scarier is the fact that you don't really see it.
Yeah, and now we've had two moments because we had the skinny dipping woman and then little Kittner boy. And and in either instance, you don't see the shark. And it's great. And it's an effective thing that's withstood the test of time because guess what, Keith? Our imagination is always scarier than the real thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, as humans, that's really a thing. Like it's sometimes it's better not to see it. And then keep it limited, right? Like the times you do see it, make it be worth it and make it cool. And I think this movie does a good job of it. And you hit on it, but you know what other movie does a effing good job of it? Alien. You want to know why? Because the alien looks awesome.
Yeah.
The best creature for any movie ever, I think, is the xenomorph in Alien.
Absolutely, yeah. H.R. Geiger.
Totally.
Design.
Yes, we've hit on it before on the show. But this all culminates as this happens with the little Kittner boy in the Vertigo shot. You're aware of this?
Yeah, this was actually when I went to school for video production. We learned this shot like pretty early on, and I took a class, camera techniques, I think it was called. But it's actually really cool how you do that. So you dolly the camera forward well, you zoom out at the same time, and then yeah, you have to have another set of hands to like dial in the focus as you're doing it. But it's a pretty complicated thing to do, but it looks so sick.
Yeah, a 2-person job, you're telling me.
I mean, yeah, I don't think most people could do it by themselves.
Yeah, and of course it's just called the Vertigo shot because Alfred Hitchcock used it in Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've also heard people call it the Jaws shot.
Okay, a little unfair.
Yeah.
But it looks awesome, and
Yeah.
it actually like captures a feeling pretty strongly, I'd say. I mean, in Vertigo, when they're using it, it's basically to elicit that Jimmy Stewart is afraid of heights, and it's kind of like making him dizzy or whatever. This is like that stomach sinking feeling of dread.
It's like the air being sucked out of his lungs.
And and that's the way you feel, right? Like you get it from that shot, from his reaction.
Yeah.
It was a perfect choice.
And Roy Scheider gives some great reactions in this movie. He
Definitely.
has a couple shots like this.
Yeah.
We'll probably get to it eventually, but there's another shot that I love of him.
Yeah, so pretty strong face acting all around in this movie, I think. You can judge people's body language and facial reactions like pretty well. They're pretty telling in this movie. So
absolutely.
Brody goes back to the townspeople, higher ups, whatever the political presence in Amity, and is just like, come on, guys, everybody's running wild. You know, little Kittner boy's mom is offering a reward to kill the shark or whatever, and Brody's like, all right, now we got to do something. And the pandemonium is interrupted in what I can only refer to as the worst part of the movie, because I hate the fingernails on the chalkboard.
And dude, I noticed on this rewatch, I mean, I've noticed it before, but it made me laugh this time actually. The drawing of the shark with the little person inside its mouth on the chalkboard is ridiculous.
It is funny, but this is our intro to Quint, played by Robert Shaw. Just a phenomenal character in film history.
Absolutely.
Great performance of the character. The lines start immediately. Shark will swallow you whole.
It's such a great introduction for this character.
Oh, it's perfect. And he's basically like, look, I can take care of this thing. This is what I do for a living, I guess. I guess he kills sharks as his job.
Yeah, I mean, when they go to his little shack, he's boiling shark jaws or something. I don't know what it is, like their teeth and stuff. Yeah.
Now, how this is a paying gig. Obviously, he's some sort of fisherman too.
Yeah, I don't know the economics of shark hunting.
I don't imagine that he's doing a lot of like fishing charters. He seems like he would be a tough guy to go out with.
Yeah.
Maybe, several fishing charter people have died on his watch. But yeah, he's like, listen, you really want to take care of this thing? Hire me. I'll take care of it. And
yeah, not without asking for more money first, though.
Well, of course, yeah. I think he wanted $10,000 to do it.
Yeah. He says, I don't remember exactly what, but yeah, he asked for 10,000.
Which I think I looked. I didn't write this down, so if somebody wants to go prove this wildly wrong, please, because I'm not trying to make a big point here. I just randomly, when I was first watching this again, like a week and a half ago, I Googled it that night to just be like, what does that translate to now with inflation? And it was like 60,000 or something. Like, and you're like, okay, that is, I mean, that's a lot of money for a one time out job.
Yeah.
10,000 doesn't seem like that much right now.
Not right now, no. Yeah.
But I mean, but still like enough. Like I still believe it,
Yeah.
Like I still believe that you would do that for $10,000. So this is still all being left up in the air. We still have this struggle. No one really knows what to do. We're gonna keep the beaches open. Still, well, listen, we're not ready to close the beaches just yet. But Brody, I mean, look, one thing that you can say about the Roy Scheider performance is he's amazing at playing this like tired, worn down guy, but that still is going to stand for something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I
He, like you said, he is like the main character, but for being the main character and also the sheriff of this town, he is a little bit of a pushover.
well, I think one of the things you can read into that is he's looking at this place as his way of like taking it easy.
Yeah, this is his. This was supposed to be a retirement. He wasn't supposed to be dealing with this big ass shark.
Yeah. The crime in New York, Keith.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about it. It's not great, and it takes a toll. And when you get an
Yeah.
opportunity to move out to this island, which that's another thing that you and I have talked about before, but like the fact that like a police chief with a wife who presumably doesn't work, unclear, but it feels like she doesn't, and two kids
Hmm.
can have a house on a small island off the coast of the continental U.S. Just like I can't, and it's like a nice little house, it's not a mansion or anything, but you're like, I mean, for like you're spending millions for even like
Yeah.
a shack in one of these places. I feel like now.
It was different times.
Yes. So it's just hard to believe. You would feel like that the chief of police would have to live back on the mainland and take the ferry and every day to work. Like
For sure.
you just can't
Yeah.
imagine that they're paying this person. But that is an element of the movie too, right? Because it's like it is a lot of working class people that live on the island that count on the richer people to come live there and spend their money. But I think one thing that we saw over time is that the rich people were just like, well, why don't we just buy these houses because we have
Yeah.
money?
Yeah. You do get that scene where the ferries are coming in and
Yeah,
it's just tons of people are just piling in.
right. So we get a brief scene of Brody back at his house, and I only want to bring it up because I enjoy Mrs. Brody, Ellen Brody.
Yeah.
They're just like hanging out, and she's like, "Want to get drunk and fool around?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah." And I'm like, you
I
know
think
what?
that I heard that line was ad-libbed as well.
Could be.
Yeah.
Listen, Lorraine Gary, I think, was one of the few people that Spielberg knew that's who he wanted for the role.
Hmm.
I mean, I think she's perfect at playing like a wife with character. Like she has character. I think. I know that she doesn't have like a strong story arc or anything like that, but to me,
Yeah.
that's someone showing up and making something that could be a thankless role like be a
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. She's great. I love the scene when Hooper comes over for dinner.
Yeah.
And I don't know was he invited or does he just show up?
Well, he just shows up.
We're skipping ahead a little bit here,
Yeah.
but I just love her performance here because Chief Brody is like at a low point
Yeah.
there, and she kind of steps in and is welcoming to Hooper. I don't know. Her performance there is just awesome, I think.
No, I agree. Well, there's a little bit of they have a conversation, and it kind of alludes back to something in the novel, which is the two of them have like a sexual, like, short affair or something. Like they meet at a
Yeah.
hotel or something.
I don't remember when I first heard about that, but I remember being bummed out because I never read the book, but just knowing that, I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that would." I'm so glad that they didn't do that in the movie because that would have made you like hate Hooper, kind of. I think.
Well, you know who's not happy about that, Keith?
Who?
Lorraine Gary. She was like, "What the hell? That's getting cut out."
Oh, really?
She was like, "I want to have a sex scene with Richard Dreyfuss."
He was hot stuff at this time, right? Yeah.
I don't know. Was he ever? I mean, I've never found him to be a particularly great looking man, but
I just mean he was coming off of First Encounter. What is that
no,
movie?
that was not made yet. He was
That was
coming off
after
of
this?
American Graffiti.
Oh, okay.
Basically, so this is not my notes, but I know this. He basically spent a lot of this movie while Jaws was being filmed, which, by the way, went on forever. I mean, so you get pretty close with this people, and I think he actually did get like a close relationship with Spielberg during this time, but he was like lobbying to be the lead in Close Encounters of the Third Kind
Oh, okay.
while they were making Jaws, and Spielberg didn't want him to be it. Not, I don't think it was anti-Dreyfus, but for some reason, he had like Al Pacino in mind or something. Like, I don't want to be like wildly off in terms of history, but like, I think it was like Al Pacino or something, and you're like, what? Like, it does seem weird looking back on it, but that's how a lot of these things happen. But obviously, Dreyfus gets the role, and goes on to be the lead in another big Spielberg movie. That being said, I never thought him to be a particularly attractive man.
Okay, I retract my statement.
Well, he was in American Graffiti, and actually George Lucas recommended Dreyfuss for the role in this because Spielberg wanted, I think, Christopher Walken. It seems weird. No, or John Voight. Sorry, John Voight.
The what ifs are pretty crazy.
Yeah, not Christopher Walken, John Voight. For some reason, I do occasionally mix the two of them up. I don't confuse them. Don't get me wrong, but for some reason, like I'll go to think of one and I think of the other. I don't know why that is. Maybe because they went on to be like older character actors too. But
regardless, I'm glad that we ended up with the cast that they did because
it's perfect. The cast is perfect, but. Yeah, he wanted John Voight, and then if he didn't, then like his next choices were Timothy Bottoms or Jeff Bridges, who are both in the Last Picture Show because he loves the Last Picture Show. So he like wanted to cast somebody from that. But George Lucas recommended Richard Dreyfuss coming off of American Graffiti, and by the way, Richard Dreyfuss did not want to take the role. Did you know that?
Yeah, I feel like I remember hearing that in that making of documentary.
I think it was not because he thought it was going to be bad. I think he was just, or that it was a thankless role or anything like that. He was like, this is going to be a hard movie to shoot.
Yeah.
And by the way, he was right. But I think, he's glad he took it. And obviously, like, it leads to other things. And
I heard some story that I don't know what the previous movie he was into this, but he thought that, I heard that he saw the movie that he did right before Jaws in theaters and thought that it sucked, and he was like, well, if this sucks, then my career's over.
Yeah. So then and then he was like, I gotta take Jaws because they want me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's funny how those things happen. And actually, to just tie it together, I'll do it now. I was going to mention this story later. This part's in the making of too, and Spielberg, like after they finally finished shooting and he finally leaves the island, because I mentioned it that he doesn't leave the whole time they're making this. Other people were leaving. Like, they were shooting 6 days a week, but other people on Sundays would at least go back to the mainland and go do whatever, just like take a break, right? Like, I probably just like either disconnect entirely or go connect with other people or whatever. But Spielberg stayed there the whole time, and then they got back and they were at a hotel in Boston, and Spielberg tells a story that he basically had like a complete nervous breakdown because he was like, oh my God, this movie's gonna suck or something. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, what did I just do? We just went like way over budget, way over like shooting schedules. I was like ruining people's lives because they want to get back to their families in LA. And he had like he said his whole body was shaking, but he said that he met Richard Dreyfuss in like the hotel bar, and like, I don't know, Dreyfuss like calmed him down or whatever. He didn't elaborate, but that was another reason why I kind of took it that they, at least during that time period, had a strong bond out of this. But for some reason, that felt like a very visceral story to me, and I could kind of like, I could like live that. I just felt like, wow, not only the insane anxiety attack, but also like, meeting a friend, a confidant in a hotel bar, just like kind of like kicking back and be like, all right, you know what? It's going to be all right. Life goes on. And, it ends up being like the biggest thing to happen to, anyone. I mean, it ends up being the biggest thing. It changes the movie industry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we get a brief scene of the two guys out at the dock, which seems like a throwaway scene, but I just want to bring it up because it's another way to show and scare with the shark without showing the shark.
Are you talking about when the guy gets dragged out on the dock?
Yeah. But I like how they
love
have
this scene too. It's so good.
Yeah, well, you see the shark carrying the dock away because you just see the dock being dragged away, and then also you see the dock turn around and like coming back.
Yeah, you see it slowly turn around and go follow the guy. And on this rewatch, Chris, my wife, was thinking that we were like, does this guy die here or not? I was like, I'm pretty sure he makes it, and he does make it.
Yeah.
But it's still terrifying. It's one of the scariest parts of the movie.
Absolutely. And I think that they were supposed to, the shark was supposed to get one of the guys, and they ultimately decided not to because they felt like it was like too much. And I agree. I think it was actually better to have a close call.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So now we meet Hooper. Hooper shows up at the docks because Brody's like trying to get more help. He's, making wild phone calls back to the mainland, calling institutes, whatever this institute is that Hooper comes from. You're like, okay, this exists. This is a job.
Those jobs exist.
Yeah, I guess not for people like me. They're not calling me up to come work there. But yes, we see him show up in this outfit. It's a gray sweatshirt with the denim on denim, and I guess there's some debate as to whether it's a navy blue or a black beanie. I've always taken it as navy blue.
I always thought it looked black to me.
See, those are the two camps, people.
Yeah. I do gotta say, something I always notice in this movie is why is everybody dressed so like wearing sweaters and jackets? It's like you're on the beach and
I have strong feelings
the 4th of July. You're fucking sweating bullets here.
I know. I have strong feelings about this, Keith. Yes, I am 100% with you. I wasn't even sure that I could survive just putting this outfit on for this segment of the show. That I might have some sort of heat stroke. Like, when I see Mayor Vaughn wearing full-on suit jackets on the 4th of effing July,
even the short sleeve shirt that Brody's wearing in that iconic shot,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it looks to me like it's like a sweater that's just it's sweater material but a t-shirt.
Yeah, with the sleeves cut off. It's like Bill Belichick out there. I know, it's crazy. I think about it all the time. And you see Quint wearing the sweater in his house or whatever. I mean, not a hint of air conditioning around. Mm-hmm. And
even when they go out on the boat, he's wearing his old army jacket and slacks.
Yeah. So I know that fishermen and stuff a lot, like people that are out on boats will wear long sleeves a lot for the sun.
Yeah.
So that it's not uncommon for sailing people to wear long sleeves and yes, even sweatshirts and stuff. But it's the 4th of July. I mean, this is as hot as it's going to be all year, and 90% of the cast of the movie is wearing layers.
It bothers me.
Same here. I know.
I'm sweating watching it.
Absolutely. And Lindsay and I will watch a lot of movies, obviously mostly because of me. And I drag her through it all the time. But one of the things that I'm commenting on often is these movies where it's in Los Angeles or whatever, and people are wearing full suits, and I'm like, I don't get it. That suit would be drenched in sweat. It would be ruined because my body grease would just be pouring through it. And she's always well, they don't have as much humidity there, so at least there's that, and they're probably okay with that. But I'm still well, if they sweat like I do, I mean, their lives would be ruined.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I am 100% with you on that. It's hard for me to get past Mayor Vaughn wearing the suit jackets on the beach on the 4th of July with a button up and a tie. Because when you're wearing tighter stuff too, tight around your neck, I mean, doesn't that make you sweat more too?
I feel like it totally adds to his unlikability too. It's just this prick is wearing a full suit on the beach.
I know. So Hooper's there in the chaos, and all the townspeople are going out trying to kill the shark. They want to collect that reward from Mrs. Kittner. There's a guy with dynamite. I'm like, what the hell are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I love how chaotic it is when all these other people are going out trying to catch the shark, if that's what you're talking about, when there's all these other people on these little boats and they're chumming, and there's people with like bows and arrows and guns and stuff.
Well, things are definitely out of control in terms of like what I mean. Brody is like saying. I mean, the other guy is the other. There's only one other cop, and he's like the one that was crying in the beginning of the movie. So it shows how prepared he is for this stuff. But Brody keeps being like, "Look, these are your people. Like they're gonna get killed. Like go talk to them." And he's like, "I gotta talk to them." Like, but they definitely are way outnumbered. Like that, it is a little bit like martial law. Like these people are just kind of like doing whatever the hell they want.
Well, they heard about the $3,000 bounty and they're just going for it.
That's right. And Um, Hooper is like, I'd like to examine the body. So this is sort of becomes like a little bit of a procedural scene where they're
Mm-hmm.
actually examining the dead body. Hooper lines all over the place in this scene. I can't even do them. Whatever. He's commenting on the body. I wish I could do like the torso's been severed.
Yeah.
But the best one, of course, is when he's freaking out. He's like, "This was no boat accident."
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, this thing got bit by a shark, a big one. And sorry, this woman was bit by a shark. And Brody's like, all right, my thoughts are justified because this guy knows what he's talking about. And
Mhm.
they make their way back to the docks, and the locals have caught something, a pretty big shark.
Mhm.
And Brody's immediate reaction is like, yes, it's over. But Hooper, Buzzkill Hooper.
I love the guy who's like, what are you talking about? Bite radius? Like,
Yeah, I know. Well, and that which leads to like his great line because he's like, "Look, fellas, I mean, the truth is the bite radius doesn't match the wounds on the victim or whatever." And
Mhm.
but listen, Keith, I like many a scene in Jaws, many a scene, but there is no scene that I like more than when Hooper is suggesting to Brody that they cut the shark open. And
Mayor Vaughn. I've heard you quote this many times.
Mayor Vaughn, overhearing it, comes over. Look, fellas, this is not the time or the place to perform some sort of half-ass autopsy on a fish. And I, for one, am not going to sit here and watch you cut that thing open and watch that little Kittner boy's guts spill out all over the dock. I
I've
know
heard you
that. I
say
know I
that
didn't
so
nail
many
that,
times.
but off memory, that had to be pretty close.
I think that was pretty
Yeah,
accurate.
thank you. Um, yes, one of the best parts of the movie.
Hmm.
And ultimately, Brody, of course, is like, no, we can't do that. And this is the shark. Brody is like convincing himself this is the shark. So,
Yeah.
um,
He even stands there in the picture because they're
yeah,
taking the picture for the newspaper or something, and he's all proud of himself.
everyone leaves the scene. The day is won. They've killed the shark. End of movie. All right, Keith, let's get into homework.
Okay.
But wait, there's more. Smash cut to back to the Brody residence, as you brought up earlier. This is where Hooper shows up. Now I know it's evening, but guess what? He's also now got a nice little evening wear, fancy little jacket and a tie, and it's just like, does anyone Keith, all summer long when I'm not like doing this show or working, I'm wearing an MTV tank top
This is
and soccer
this is my
shorts.
attire for the last few months.
I,
Shorts and a t-shirt.
yeah, I'm like, I'm not wearing a jacket to go over to somebody's house in the middle of summer.
No. He does
Um,
bring some bottles of wine though, which is
that is
nice of
true.
him.
That is nice. That's a nice touch. And I guess maybe we get a little insight that he is wealthy because it's just he knows how to carry himself.
Hmm. Well, when you eventually see his boat a little bit later on, you're like, whoa.
I know you kind of wish they could have. Well, the orca is great and it
That
makes so much of the movie. But if you were Brody, wouldn't you be like, well, why didn't we take your boat?
Yeah, like you said, there's not too many things to nitpick about this movie, but that is definitely one of them. You're like, why did you guys not take the fancy, super nice boat?
Yeah, I know. Um,
Oh, sorry.
whoa,
Keep kicking over my Herman Bloom bottle.
a cacophony of noise over there. All right,
Continue.
but maybe the best thing out of this scene is Brody pouring himself just like a full, almost pint glass full of wine.
Like this.
Yeah, and he decides, okay, Hooper has convinced me that we need to go cut that damn tiger shark open and see if the Kittner boy is still in the digestive tract, which seems like it would be a horrible, horrible thing to experience, which I think is why he's getting so drunk. But they go over and they do it, and no Kittner boy to be found, Keith. So our shark our shark is still at large. And they're going to go on a little nighttime cruise on the water. Chief Brody, who I haven't mentioned, is afraid of the water. And Hooper is like, hey, let's go out on my fine pleasure boat to find the shark. It should still be in these waters. And Chief Brody's like, I'm not nearly drunk enough for that. And Hooper's like, yes, you are. They have a nice little
Wait, real
game.
quick, we skipped over just like a heartwarming moment that I just wanted to touch on real quick. I think we skipped over it. The part where Brody is sitting there with his son and they're doing the like this thing.
Uh-huh.
And then he's like doing this and his kid is like copying him basically.
Should you describe it for the people not experiencing the visual element?
So he's putting his hands together and bringing his fingers up and touching his face and just looking very sad. And this is all happening before the dinner moment. Right? Yep. Am I remembering this right?
No, you're right. Absolutely. That's the start of that scene. Before Hooper shows up, that's what's happening.
But it's just a fun fact because there's so many cool stories about the making of this.
True.
This whole scene was like not planned. Apparently Roy Scheider was just sitting there waiting in between takes, and he was doing that stuff. And I don't know the actor's name of the young boy, but they were doing that for real. And and he pulled Spielberg over and was like, hey, look at this. And then they did it. And he was like, all right, we need to shoot that. I just think that's a cool.
For sure. And it comes off as like really genuine and really natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see how sad and how guilty Schreider feels because we kind of skipped over that too. But Kittner Boy's mom is not happy about what happened. And he definitely feels very guilty about this because he had the opportunity to shut the beaches down. And he let Mayor Vaughn kind of push him over.
Well, you're right about that.
Okay, we can go back to the boating scene now.
Sure. Well, you mentioned earlier liking some of the shots on that boat.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the big thing here where they find a wrecked ship. And it's, what's his face? Ben Gardner, the local fisherman, played by Craig Kingsbury. And kind of famously because they find the severed head floating in the water. That guy, the guy who was living in Martha's Vineyard, Craig Kingsbury, he's kind of forever immortalized by having this head mold.
With one eye.
Yeah. And that scares Hooper. And it is a tense moment in the movie. It's definitely like a suspense moment.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes it back to his boat and without issue. But doesn't he find a tooth or whatever? That's the whole...
he finds a tooth in like the chunk of the boat that was ripped out, but he drops it when he gets scared.
That's right. Which, by the way, is like his move.
Yeah.
This is not
he
the last
drops the
time.
dart later on too. Yeah.
Yeah. He talks a mean game, but in the moment he kind of botches everything. And
I did notice on this rewatch too. It's kind of funny because it's a very delayed response. Like he sees the head, and then he sits there for a second. And then he screams and drops everything and swims back up. I was like, what? That's how a funny.
I just pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of the hull of a boat.
Yeah. Also, I thought that shark tooth looked bigger than a shot glass, or at least the shot glasses I use. You might be talking about those big boys.
The doubles.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much more significant out of this scene, other than like. These two are now in a frenzy. They're like, listen, we got to get... The summer people are showing up. Yeah. It's the 4th of July. We see Peter Benchley, the guy that wrote the novel. Did you know that? You saw that in the making of, right? That's the guy who's hosting the little documentary on the beach.
Yeah.
Or the news, whatever he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. But the scene that we have with Brody and Hooper trying to argue with Mayor Vaughn again... in front of...
It's further proof that the shark that was caught before was not the right shark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they know. And they know. But things are out of control now. I mean, it's full... I mean, the beaches are filled with people, so it's Mayor Vaughn's delight. And it turns into chaos once again. I do love them fighting with Mayor Vaughn in front of the billboard. I think that's one of the better exchanges in the movie, too.
Yeah, there's some kids that put graffiti on it or something. I don't remember.
I just know you're going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you in the ass. I know.
Mayor Vaughn says something funny, too. He's like, I want you to Brody, I want you to go out there and find them and hang them up by their Buster britches or something. Their Buster Browns.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many of the characters have so many great lines in this movie. But I love Richard Dreyfuss in this movie too. When he gets just worked up, it's great. So yeah, courtesy of Mayor Vaughn, the beaches stay open. We have some fake fins that freak some people out because there's extra security around. We've brought some security boats in, and we have a couple fake outs. Again, the Jaws theme doesn't play whenever we have these fake out moments, so that's our clue as viewers. But it is, the first time you see it and you're not picking up on these clues, you're like, whoa, okay, I see fins. And then there are real fins that come into the little pond area, or whatever they call it. I think they call it the pond.
They call it the pond.
It's just a little bay.
Yeah. But that's where Brody tells his son to take his little raft boat that they have.
I know. I guess he thinks he'll be safe there. And in the movies, what happens with the Jaws movies in general, and we're not really going to talk about the sequels because they basically all suck, but
yeah,
it is funny that like it kind of gets introduced in this movie and then is like continually a thing that this shark and maybe family members of this shark in the future have specific issues with the Brody family.
Yeah.
It's like the damn Montagues and Capulets, like the Brodys and the shark family. I don't know. There's some sort of blood feud. But yeah, because there was some fake outs, Brody's like, oh, people are freaking out in the pond, but he's just like, what now? People are making a mockery of this. I'm not going to rush over there until Ellen Brody's like, well, Michael's in the pond. He's like, so then he starts running, and luckily Chief Brody's kids are okay, but a guy does get killed.
Yeah. Most of the actors in this movie are great, but that guy wasn't given a good delivery. I don't know who that guy was. But... hey, do you guys need help?
Yeah, I know. It starts off okay, but then like there's the second part when he's like, are you guys all right?
Yeah. Not very good delivery.
Hey guys, are you okay? Like, I don't know. There's something really weird about what he says.
Yeah.
But don't worry, he's killed.
I think that one. I think you can see that one coming from a mile away.
Yeah. So but Brody's kids are okay, but it was a close brush with death, and now everyone's like, "Oh shit, we were wrong." It's basically like in the Harry Potter movies when the Ministry of Magic is like, he's not back, and then Voldemort shows up, and the Minister of Magic is like, he's back. It's been denied, and now it's just like, oh shit. And we smash cut to the hospital. Mayor Vaughn is distraught. He's like, my kids were on that beach too, Martin. And Brody now can do whatever he wants, and he's like, you're going to sign this, we're going to pay Quint. And this launches into the second half of the movie. So the first half is all the Amity stuff. I'm going to pick up the pace here because there's just so much. All right, so let's go get Quint. Brody, Hooper, easily get Quint to go. Quint doesn't really want to bring Hooper at first. We have a little showdown of those two. I'll bring him for ballast, but ultimately Hooper ends up being an integral part of the journey. And Brody's like, look, man, it's my party, it's my charter. Quint and Hooper have one of their many showdowns. Hooper with a great line of response, I don't need this working class hero crap. They're going toe to toe already. Quint is a shit talker, and he is kind of trying to outman Brody and Hooper at every turn, always hilariously. Immediately,
I'd say more Hooper than Brody. Like, he has a little bit more respect for Brody.
Yeah, but he's kind of giving Brody shit in front of his wife too at the send off.
That's true.
I see you brought your rubbers, Chief.
Quint, he's been through some shit, and he fancies himself an alpha male.
Absolutely, and he totally is. And he sees Hooper with that damn cage. You go in the cage. Cage goes in the water.
Sharks in the water.
Our shark. Farewell and adieu to you, fair Spanish lady.
I love Quint, dude.
Oh, he's so good. I mean, this second half of the movie and having like all these lines from him is great. So they first get out to sea. It's quiet at first. We got Brody doing the chum line, but doesn't take too long for Quint to get that initial bite. And I do love just the slow trickle of the fishing line
Mm-hmm.
at first, and then it completely takes off. And this is probably like the first indication to Quint that this is like a good ass size shark. He starts to early on be like, oh shit, this we may be in over our heads a little bit here. I mean, Quint's never going to admit that, but you can kind of tell that he's a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
Like when he's trying to bring it in, so much so that Hooper's like, it's not a shark, it's something else, and then it breaks the line. And
I'm trying
actually,
to
I
remember.
think, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember in what order. Like, does the fishing line thing happen first, or does the Brody chumming and then it kind of shows its face? while
That's
he's
after. That's later. That doesn't
That's
happen.
later on. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
So when the line breaks, Hooper, who had been saying it's not a shark, Quint, it's one of the maybe the more maybe humble moments from Quint, even though he's right. Instead of going after Hooper, he kind of eloquently is like, well, it shows one thing that you don't have, you college boys don't have the courage to admit when you're wrong or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
it is a moment where Hooper is smart and he does know his shit, but he was really challenging Quint and questioning Quint, but obviously Quint was right
Mm-hmm.
in this case, and Quint is sort of a gentleman about how he handles that. I mean, he could be more of a prick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, so there's a brief part after this where they're trying to find it again. Quint goes topside on the boat, which when you look at the mast on these things, you're like, holy hell, it's like really up high. But this is now where Brody has started to the chum line again, and this is maybe the shot of the movie when Jaws pops out of the water.
Yeah, I think this is the reaction that I was referring to later.
Yeah.
When Brody just sits up and he has the cigarette in his mouth, and he's just like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, it's a real shame that cigarettes are so horrible for you, because I'll tell you this, some great reaction shots in movies with cigarettes in mouths.
Yeah, it was that shot. Rewatching it this time was making me think of Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing in
Oh,
Las
yeah.
Vegas, because he's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, and Brody just slowly backing up. I do think the shot is great with the shark. I mean, like
yeah,
even in 4K where you're kind of a little bit like, maybe this is too clear. And you hit on it, but they struggled to get these shots. The shark was like never working. The mechanical shark was like never working.
hmm
And this is what, like, they were out to sea a lot. And when you think about shooting movies and movies being like a fun industry to be in, and I think sometimes it is, and I think sometimes it really isn't. And these guys, they had a horrible time. They would be on a boat for hours just waiting for everything to line up to get the shot, and then like be waiting for the shark to work, and it wouldn't work, and like they would be out there for hours doing nothing,
yeah,
like day
yeah.
after day.
And to think, apparently Spielberg was like very adamant about shooting this actually on the ocean,
Yeah.
and if you can imagine, like they want the horizon line to make them feel isolated. They wanted to never see like another boat off in the distance or on the horizon. So imagine how many times they probably got all set up and had the shark working and everything, and then they had to just start over, wait for a boat to like disappear from the horizon line. Like apparently that happened a bunch.
Yeah, and it just sounded like a lot of sitting around waiting for things to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by sitting around like being out on boats and waiting.
Yeah.
So that did sound like a drag, but it was totally worth it. And it was totally the right choice in the long run. But
Hmm.
holy hell, it did seem like. I mean, when I think about that, I think I would have hated acting in that sense.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
just I hate sitting around waiting, doing nothing.
Yeah, there was a clip in that documentary where Roy Scheider was talking about what the what the hardest parts about filming were, and he was like, honestly, just waiting around so
Yeah,
much was the worst part, and people were getting sunburned and just getting seasick, and yeah, it was
yeah.
probably pretty rough.
That part would be horrible. I'd be remiss, Keith, if I didn't go back because I skipped over when they're at Quint's little house or whatever that is on the
Oh
dock,
yeah,
and he offers the his little homebrew or whatever to the chief to do a shot. But that's when he does,
that's when he says, "Yeah, the thing that I have tattooed on me. Here's to
yeah,
swimming with bow-legged women."
here's to swimming
And
with
Brody said,
bow-legged women. Yeah.
Hooper's about to take a shot or something, and Brody's like, "Don't drink that."
Yeah. Um. So after the shark pops out of the water, this is where we get the "you're going to need a bigger boat" after the Brody reaction. As we said, the voice or that line is improv, and
Mhm.
it's probably the line of the movie.
Yeah. I feel like it's misquoted a lot too. Like I feel like people usually say we're gonna need a bigger boat, but
Yeah.
it's actually you're gonna need a bigger boat.
Somehow that happens. Somehow, like the most famous lines from movies are misquoted. I feel like it's like Empire Strikes Back. Everyone says, "Luke, I am your father,"
Yeah.
and that's not the line in the movie.
What is the line in the movie?
He says, "No, I am your father."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, no, I am your father is more the
Uh-huh.
delivery of it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've probably misquoted both of these multiple
yeah,
times.
yeah, because that's what there's things that like they turn into in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
No, I same. And like there are years where I would do it, jokingly, whatever, "Luke, I am your father," as like a kid or whatever, and like
Yeah.
then you rewatch it and you're like, well, wait, that's not what he actually said.
Yeah. That's like the thing where you're talking into the fan. You're like, Luke, I am
Yeah.
your father.
Right, right. And that's like
Yeah.
somehow more famous than the actual line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So now they all get a good look at this thing though, and I think everybody's a little bit like, holy shit. This is where Hooper, that's a 20-footer. Quint,
Mhm.
25. And all 3 tons of him. And I just have to comment on this next part because now everybody's like in a hurried way about them where they're trying to like, we got to do something here. We got to figure out the next steps to take this thing out. And everybody's kind of scrambling on the boat. Hooper gets his camera out, needs Martin in the foreground of the picture for scale to
Yeah,
get the
for
thing.
scale.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going out there.
How much, Keith, did this remind me of making Lindsay pose for an Instagram pic? I'd be like, hey, go stand closer to that shark. This will be a great picture for Instagram.
No, this was us in Seattle. Like, we got to see how big the Space Needle is.
Yeah, that's true. We did do that. So that part is hilarious. And this is also what introduces another filming technique to where they didn't have to use the shark, which is the barrels.
Hmm. I
Which,
love everything they do with the barrels is genius. It's like, it makes sense. It's cool. It's unique. I don't know.
agreed.
It's
It
awesome.
it works perfectly, and it adds to like the heightened sense of what these guys think is going to happen versus what actually happens, because the idea of the barrels is that it's going to drag the shark up to the surface because it can't drag the weight of these things underwater. At least I
It
think.
even leads to some of my favorite Quint quotes where one of them is like, he's not going to stay down with tree barrels in him.
Yeah,
Not with three.
I know. Well, we always say tree.
Yeah. He
And
doesn't actually say it like that, but
No, but it's fun to do it like that.
yeah.
But that's the thing. Every time I watch this with Lindsay, she's like, "Well, he doesn't say tree, but you and Keith always say that." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know where that started, but it's funny.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but it's fun." Leave it at that. So yeah, the barrels. We still have this Hooper and Quint thing going back and forth. Hooper attaches his little signal tracker thing to it, which is a good idea. But Quint takes the shot. It hits the shark, and eventually they end up getting 3 barrels in this damn thing. But that sequence plays out over time. We do hit nighttime on the boat, and
It is kind of hard to keep track of everything that happens out here because it's a lot of similar stuff happening. Like
yes,
at one point he has 1 barrel, and then doesn't he cut the line or something? They tie those lines on from the first 2 barrels, and
yeah,
then they end up getting dragged around, and a lot of stuff is happening, but it's all just them on the boat going after the shark, basically.
yeah. And the latter stuff with the barrels, yeah, it ends up. It's sort of like the shark ends up using the barrels against them.
Yeah.
Um, but we have before we run into all that, we have this nighttime sequence where they're just on the boat, and they're kind of have like a little interlude from the battle that they're in, and it seems like they're drinking maybe heavily. Implied, not fully shown, but they seem drunk.
Yeah.
And this is where we have the scars scene that you were talking about a little earlier, which is kind of hilariously. We talked about Kevin Smith on this episode. Kevin Smith, a big Jaws fan.
Yeah.
In Mallrats, the 2 characters are Brody and Quint. um,
He's in that documentary too, actually. I don't know
Oh,
if
is
you
he?
watched the same one. Yeah, they interviewed him for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a big Jaws fan for sure, and he in Chasing Amy, they do like a reenactment of the scars discussion too.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But the big thing in this scene, unless there was something you wanted to talk specifically about with the scars, I was gonna move to the USS Indianapolis story.
No, yeah, that was one thing that I noted too from, a little bit of research is the Indianapolis story is true, actually.
Some version of that, right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
that actually happened. Like the boat did deliver the bomb
the
and
Hiroshima
they
bomb.
were attacked. Or actually I don't know if the delivering the bomb part was true, but a ship was sunk and it was the Indianapolis, and many of the people who were put into the ocean were attacked by sharks.
Yeah, which seems horrifying.
Yeah.
But this is the big dramatic dialogue set piece of the movie, and I guess the guy that wrote the original script, because this like basically you'll learn every script passes through like several rewrites and several people contributing to them, even though like a lot of times it's 1 or 2 people credited. But I think the main version of this script that Spielberg was working off of, the guy who did that, Spielberg wanted this to be like a longer dramatic thing, and that guy always kept it like short and to the point. So, and it had been this way up till shooting this scene basically, and he was like, I need this to be more, I need this to have more meat to it. So he called up his friend John Milius, who was part of that crew but just not as famous as the rest of them. Do you know who John Milius is?
Mm-mm.
He is like part of that Spielberg, Coppola, Lucas. Like he was part of that crew, but he just never had as big of hits. He did write the screenplay for Apocalypse Now. He
Okay.
directed a movie called Big Wednesday that's about like surfers that has been on my watch list for a long time and I've never seen it. Kind of famously, infamously, he's like a he's like a character, and supposedly the Walter character from Big Lebowski is like based on him.
Okay.
Like he's kind of like this big intense guy like that.
That's a
Okay.
fun fact.
Yeah. He wrote like I think he wrote like Dirty Harry, or at least like Dirty Harry like dialogue and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he would write like these big things. So Spielberg asked him to do a treatment or whatever of this scene, and he wrote a lot of, I think he did like the black eyes, like a doll's eyes thing. I think that came from him. And he wrote like a 10-page dialogue or something. And I might not have all the details right, so don't, crucify me for this, but he wrote like a longer monologue here, and Robert Shaw cut it down to what ends up being, he kind of tailored it a little bit himself, and, to what ends up being the final scene. Now, Robert Shaw also asked Spielberg if he could actually get drunk and do the scene, because I guess he had been a little bit of a drinker, and Spielberg being young, even though it's like that's definitely a big no-no in the business, he was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, they
But
tried it and it was a complete disaster,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they had to come back and do it the next day.
I guess he was a real wreck. Like there were people
Yeah.
like carrying him to like
Uh-huh.
get on set or whatever. The set being
Yeah.
the boat. Well, I don't know if they filmed that in the interior of the boat or what. You know what I mean? It's hard to tell for that
I mean,
scene.
it's easy to believe that Robert Shaw was probably a heavy drinker and smoker in real life.
Sure.
Apparently, he died at like in his 50s, right?
Wow. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like our kind of people.
But, anyways, this is like my favorite scene in the movie, though.
Absolutely. It's the big moment. But yeah, and then he came back and did it whatever, sober the next day and nails it. And if you watch Richard Dreyfuss in the scene, he's just kind of looking at him in awe as he's doing this. And Richard Dreyfuss has said, like, he's like, I wasn't acting. I was just watching Robert Shaw do this and was just sort of like mesmerized by it.
Hmm.
He was like, I was totally in the moment. He's like, I think he, was like in the moment of Shaw doing this performance, but he was like watching as a peer, but also as a spectator, as an audience person, just like being blown away by watching this happen. And yeah,
It's one of the scariest moments in the whole movie, I think, too, and it has nothing to do with the with the shark either. It's just listening to Quint tell the story is like it's like sitting around a fire and telling a ghost story or something, you know?
yeah, it's intense. But to break things up, the shark attacks the boat and kind of starts like, I don't know, putting holes in it. It's hard to
Yeah.
really explain what's happening, but yeah, it's kind of knocking it out. And this kind of starts the whole sequence of the orca sinking, which is a slow thing that unfolds over the next whatever 15, 20 minutes of the movie, whatever's left. And the orca starts to slowly sink, but we reached the point where the barrels aren't working and Quint is like, the boat is sinking, and he turns to Hooper. He's like, all right, what can we do? Because he's sort of out of ideas.
He
And
asks what they can do with the needles, right? Or is that later on?
no, that's where we're at.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I
Yeah.
jumped ahead a little bit because you hit on it, but the stuff happens with the barrels where they try to tie it around. They're trying to lead him back into shore.
Hmm.
Quint blows the engine because he's,
Hmm.
I don't know. He gets out of control at a certain point.
Yeah, a big thing that I think we might have skipped over, or
Yeah.
maybe it didn't happen yet. But yeah, when Quint kind of has like a mental breakdown, and Brody is trying to radio into the Coast Guard,
Yeah.
and Quint freaks out and he takes a baseball bat or something, and he destroys the radio, and then they're just like
Yeah.
stuck out there.
The best thing about that is when he hands the bat to Brody afterwards.
Yeah,
Just great.
yeah,
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I was like just skipping over some of the stuff to wrap it up. But yeah, that is a key moment because it's sort of like Quint understands what this is.
yeah.
He's like, this is man versus nature. We're fighting this thing to the death.
And I think that does happen after Quint tells the story of the Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So you kind of get the feeling that it's like personal for him. He's like, I saw my buddy get bit in half. He's
Yeah.
like, I want to get revenge. He's like, and then a little bit after this too, when he basically runs the boat until the engine blows. You get the feeling, or at least I do, that he does it on purpose because he wants to confront the shark. Like he knows it's a possibility that they'll lose and be eaten by
Yeah.
the shark, but I get the feeling that he's just lost it and he wants revenge for what he experienced on the Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's possible he has a little bit of a death wish. But yeah, you're right. So all of that happens, which is what, but he does. There is a little bit of desperation when they turn to Hooper. Like there is a little bit of he's out of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and what he's normally done to try to catch a shark has not worked, and
Yeah.
they need to try something else. And
Yeah.
they go with Hooper's cage. Smash cut to like a quick. Some assembly required sequence where they're building the cage, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're like screwing the thing together.
kind of a funny throwaway moment. I'm like, I think Brody takes his shirt off, and I'm like, that would be me. Like, if I have to put something together, I'm like sweating from the middle of my forehead. Like,
I'd be like, where's the IKEA instructions for this
Yeah.
shark cage?
no harsher terms exist than some assembly required. But then, of course, Hooper does go into the cage. The cage does go into the water. And as we find out, our shark is in the water. So, little foreshadowing from Quint earlier. And he's Hooper has a little bit of a moment where maybe he could try to, jam this thing into the eye or mouth of the shark. But no, he loses sight of the shark. The shark somehow sneaks up on him and hits the cage, and he drops his thing.
This is another one of those happy accidents that I think makes the movie better too, though, because I think Hooper originally was supposed to die here.
Yeah.
But because they got such good footage of the shark, like, because there was a scene like with like the mini cage or something, like there's this whole thing where they used a mini cage and a little person for a while, and then you see some footage of like the empty little cage with a regular shark, a real shark attacking it and like thrashing over it and stuff, but there was no person in it at the time.
Right.
So I think that's what prompted Spielberg to be like, okay, well, let's rewrite it so that Hooper survives this attack.
Yeah, they had a whole other production going on with some people that they had hired that had participated in some real shark documentary to get some real footage, and that stuff looks good where it's woven in.
Is
and
that the stuff with the little person and the miniature cage?
Yeah.
That I'm thinking of? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And the main thing when they have real footage of a shark destroying the cage, it looks awesome, and they had to include it.
Yeah.
But Hooper's not in it, so yeah, it ends up being another swerve from the plan. But yeah, it works out. Hooper's removed from the equation for the minute, and we jump back to the orca. And not only are we jumping back to the orca, but we have the shark jumping onto the orca.
Yeah.
Which maybe is the most unbelievable part in a pretty wild movie, but like, I don't know. I totally am ready to buy it.
Yeah. I think what sells this moment the most is Robert Shaw's performance, how he screams as he's like sliding down and into the mouth of the shark and like kind of fighting for his life. Like it's definitely the scariest part of the movie for sure.
Well, there's a couple parts that are like pretty intense as the viewer to it. One, Quint is like the ultimate badass, and you actually see him be like, actually screaming, like, and it's intense. But I feel like they save his cred because he still pulls that machete and is like, well, I'm going to stab you in the head as I go down.
I actually have like a little action figure, and it came with a little knife, and like he's in that position where he's like holding that.
That's amazing. Yeah. So we have the demise of Quint, and the boat continues to sink. Martin shoves one of the tanks of compressed air in the mouth of the shark, and then we have the famous other line from the movie, "Smile, you son of a," shoots the tank, explodes the shark. What would go on to be something that is used in trailers, I feel like, for the rest of our lives, where they would replace a swear word with an explosion.
Yeah.
I don't know if that started with this movie, but I mean, certainly made it famous. And
it's a good way to keep it PG.
Absolutely. And Hooper resurfaces, and the two of them swim back to shore, and that's your movie, folks.
Yeah.
Is there anything key that I missed that you feel like we have to hit on?
I don't think so. We sped through the end of that, I think, a little bit, but that's okay. There's not much to say about this movie that hasn't already been said.
Totally.
Us doing this episode is really just an excuse for us to talk about it.
I love the movie. I've watched it so many times. I have gone to see it in the theater when they've done like special whatever, classic movie nights or whatever. I do want to try to see the whatever re-release they have planned for this year. I'm sure I will. It's just, it never gets old to me. I mean, Jaws does not get old to me, and it's a perfect summer movie. It's great to watch on July 4th, but I think you can watch it like anytime during the summer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
anytime I go swimming or kayaking or anything, for some reason I always want to watch this movie after I go swimming.
Same. I always want to, like, even when I think about the trip we went on to like the San Juan Islands, like I always think about being at like a place like that and just watching Jaws.
Yeah.
Like that's like a dream vacation.
That would have been a perfect time too.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it was great to watch Top Gun too.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't want to see just a bunch of dudes in like short shorts and nothing else, just playing beach volleyball? Like, what a
Okay,
dream.
well, this is going to be another long episode. Should we cut it here and go to our homework section?
Yep, that's Jaws.
All right, Matt, keeping with the somewhat aquatic theme of this episode, I
Yeah.
asked you to watch Underwater. What did you think of Underwater?
I'll tell you this, it was not my favorite of the movies I've done for homework.
In our break, you said we didn't have enough laughs. That's a laugh.
Yeah, there we go. There was a quote that I did write down from it that Kristen Stewart said. She does some narration in the movie, and she says, "There's a comfort to cynicism. There's a lot less to lose." And I was like, "Yeah, I get that. Words to live by."
This movie's a little cringe.
So here's the things that I like about it. It's definitely like a Alien knockoff or whatever. I don't mean that as like an insult. I mean, like, there's always a bunch of movies that try to be the same.
Yeah.
You
More
know.
so in the setting than like anything else.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I love movies that are set and stuff like this, which is part of the reason why I love Deep Blue Sea, which is why I assigned this to you, because I thought they're similar
Agreed.
in ways.
Yeah, the sea station or whatever that they're in is cool. I didn't fully understand like everything like that's part of the plot of the movie in terms of like what this place was and what all they try to do.
It doesn't really matter in this movie.
Yeah. One thing that jumped out to me, T.J. Miller being in it, I kind of thought that he was like canceled by the time this movie came out, but
I think this was right before, but he kind of stinks in this movie too.
I thought he had some funny lines though. He was saying some stuff that was making me laugh.
I don't know. I wasn't down with his. I feel like it was like Kristen Stewart and everybody else are playing this movie so seriously,
Serious, yeah.
And then he is just like joking, and he's got his little like stuffed animal with him and stuff. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I can't remember the other girl's name who wasn't Kristen Stewart, but there's a part where they're talking about someone going to do something, and that girl was clearly like the weak link of the group. Like she couldn't do all of the more intense things. And they're like, okay, we need a volunteer to go do this. And he says her. And then he's like, no, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. You're right. He does have a couple funny lines. Yeah.
That actually made me laugh. And
dude, Vincent Castle though, he out acts everybody in this movie.
Yeah. He always like freaks me out after Black Swan.
I think he's a great actor.
Oh, he is for sure. There's a part where there's something mentioned about his daughter, and he's like, yeah, she's 14. And the Kristen Stewart character is like, no, she was way older than that. She's like my age. And he's like, oh, did I say 14? And then she later finds like a memorial thing that girl died when she was 14. And I thought there was going to be more to that, but
yeah,
it kind of dies on the vine. I was like, oh, is there something weird with these monster things in time? Like, I was like, are we heading into like an Arrival situation or no?
No,
I don't think.
Yeah, I think that was just like a thing for that character to be like, oh, he hasn't really gotten over it or something. I don't know.
So those are probably my key takeaways from the movie.
I do feel like this is. I made a video like months ago where I said that I think that this movie will be like a future hidden gem kind of. Ooh. Maybe like this is something that I think that like Vinegar Syndrome or somebody could put out in like 10 years, where it's like just a cool weird sci-fi movie. It's not actually a good movie, but I could see a cult following building around this eventually,
So I thought a decent amount of the production value was pretty strong too. I wasn't as into the actual monsters, whatever they are, the sea monsters.
Yeah, it's kind of cheesy. They're like Lovecraftian or something.
Yeah,
it's like, there's one massive one. We can spoil this because it's a shitty movie anyway. But so you find out at the end of the movie, it's like a massive like Lovecraftian, otherworldly being, and then there's all these little ones that are just like, I don't know, little creatures that live with him or something.
And I'm just not. I am kind of not really into Lovecraftian type monsters anyway.
Yeah, I'm not either, to be honest.
But I do like. That's the thing. I kind of feel like this could have taken a page out of Jaws or Alien playbook and be like, less is more with the, monsters.
Totally. Yeah, this could have been a really cool movie. Like, if it was just like deep sea creatures or something,
Yeah.
it would have been way cooler. Like you didn't need that massive thing at the end. It
Yeah,
could have
because
been something else.
just being in that station and having that fall apart is like its own thrill
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. Yeah.
Well,
But
okay. That's all I
all
got
right.
for underwater.
Yeah. Not really a high recommend for anybody,
Yeah.
but I'll say I like this movie. I don't
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
great, but I enjoy it.
I assumed you did assigning it to me. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, get it. I rented it, so I mean, listen, no regrets here, okay?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think of something that like fit with the aquatic theme, like
Yeah.
with Deep Blue Sea and
No,
Jaws.
yes, it was a nautical themed episode, and this was on theme, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Should we move on?
Quickly.
All right. So you asked me to watch The
Yes,
Last Detail, which that's kind of like a risque cover.
it is just a shirtless Jack Nicholson wearing
Jack
like a
Nicholson.
naval cap and smoking a cigar. Um, yeah, directed by Hal Ashby and written screenplay by Robert Towne, based off a novel.
Hmm.
So Hal Ashby and Robert Towne. I talked about Shampoo. That's the same kind of creative crew. But go ahead, your thoughts.
So I really like this movie. I like the setup for it. Feels like a kind of movie that doesn't really get made anymore.
Yeah,
You know, it's like all these 70s movies that you're assigning me are just like
they don't make them
these
like they used to.
technical. Yeah, it's so if you I'm assuming a lot of people if you're still listening, you probably definitely have never heard of this movie and don't know what it is. So basically it's these two guys are they military police or something in the Navy?
No, I think they're just naval. They're just
They're just naval
soldiers,
officers.
but they get asked to. They just get given this assignment.
They're assigned to basically take this younger member of the Navy to jail because he stole $40.
Yeah, and it's gonna be for
Uh,
like 8 years.
yeah, so he's sentenced to D&D, which I don't know what that is because I wasn't in the military. I'm
Dungeons and
assuming it's
Dragons.
like jail or
Oh,
prison for a military person, right?
yeah. I mean, I'm also making the same assumption.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on this either, but yeah.
So, anyways, Jack Nicholson plays, like kind of like a dick, but also like a nice guy at the same time. I don't know. It's hard to explain his character.
He has a little bit. I mean, he's always kind of like this eccentric guy during this era. I think he has a little bit of his One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest character in it,
Yeah.
where he's in the Navy, but he's very anti-establishment. Like,
Yeah. And he kind of has a soft spot for this kid because he thinks that the punishment is harsh, basically,
yeah,
is what I got
it
from it.
doesn't fit the crime, that's for sure.
Yeah, so him and the other guy, I don't know the other actor's name, but they decide on this trip the Navy gives them like 5 days to go and transport this guy to wherever he's going. And along the way, they just like go on these fun adventures. They like go to a whorehouse.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like,
making their way from I think Norfolk, Virginia, and they go through DC, New York City, and Boston.
yeah, and they realize that they're getting a per diem, and it's
Yeah,
more money than they need and more time than they need to actually get him there. So, and like along the way, what's the guy's name who plays the guy? He's in Christmas Vacation, and
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid is the guy, and it was cool to see him in like a younger role.
Yeah, he's also in the Last Picture Show.
I need to just get that.
Yeah.
I was looking at it in Barnes and Noble, but I was thinking I might just get that box set because I've seen that box
Oh,
set
America
used
Lost and Found.
before. Yeah, because there's some other ones in there like Easy Rider and stuff that
Yeah.
I want to get, but
So it is like an interesting road movie, and but there is a heaviness to it too with everything that's going on with this dude, the Randy Quaid
yeah,
character. So if people don't know what this is, which I'm with you that probably not, but I don't know if you remember this. Richard Linklater directed a movie not too long ago called Last Flag Flying.
I haven't seen it.
It has Steve Carell, Lawrence Fishburne, and Breaking Bad. What the hell? Why am I drawing a blank? The main guy from Breaking Bad. And
I can't think of his name either.
yes, it's also on Seinfeld. Bryan
Bryan
Cranston.
Cranston.
Yeah. So it's the three of them, and they're playing these characters. Bryan Cranston is the Jack Nicholson character. Lawrence Fishburne is I think it's Otis Young, character, and Steve Carell is the Randy Quaid character. Although they did change the names, they don't give them the same names for some reason. And even the
So it's like a
backstory,
remake of this?
they're the same characters but older. It's like later in life.
Okay, that's interesting.
It
I'm
is
definitely gonna
interesting.
check this out now.
So I did watch it, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was decent. But the backstory is not the same. It's not the. So it's weird. It's weird that it exists because
It's a sequel, but not really
it's a sequel, but the character names are different, and the backstory is different, but they are playing the same characters.
Weird.
I think well, because the first one is The Last Detail is definitely based off a novel. I'm assuming Last Flag Flying is based off a sequel novel.
Okay.
And then I'm assuming that they changed things for The Last Detail. So I don't know what all has changed, but it's like watching the two movies, it's hard to make it make sense because they don't work as a movie and a sequel to it. So it's weird. But if you get a chance at some point, I would just say, because you've now watched this, you should watch Richard Linklater's Last Flag Flying, I think is the name of it. Just because it's the same characters, and it is decent on its own merit too. I like The Last Detail a lot more though.
Yeah. Well, this is a fun movie overall, though. Like you said, it feels just like a road movie, and I guess you could call it a road movie, right? I mean, they're going from city to city, and it's like you said, Jack Nicholson's character is just like anti-establishment kind of, and he's just kind of breaking all these rules, and it's fun. It's a fun movie.
Well, like
with some heaviness.
Yeah, for sure. I do like the premise though that these guys are just going on this detail, they're calling it, and that they actually figure out, the plan changes, but they figure out like, hey, these guys they're giving us a week to do this. We could actually have him there in like 2 days, and then we could just spend the rest of our per diem money and have a time before we have to report back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty great too. Like, I don't know, there is just something about this. They're part of this institutionalized thing, the military, and it's like this freedom and them going and living in the world and just getting hammered. I also love how every night that the three of them they're together, they're in one hotel room and they give the good bed to Randy Quaid. Yeah. The other two sleep on cots.
Yeah. Yeah. This movie is pretty good, I will say. I'm glad that you're assigning me all these, older Jack Nicholson movies.
Jack Nicholson movies in the 70s, it's really a great era in film history. So, I'll try to move to something different for homework, but because this was on my list to assign you anyway, and even though there's no water in the movie, it's kind of
they
like
are sailors.
Yeah, they are. They're in the Navy, so that was that. It was the closest thing to the nautical theme that I could get. So, all right, why don't you wrap us up, Keith?
All right, yeah. I guess just one more thing I just want to point out. Jack Nicholson is just fucking amazing in this movie.
Thank you for pointing that out. You know what?
There's no way
we could have ended the episode without you saying that.
Dude, he just has these moments of these like crazy outbursts like he always has. Yeah. But then also just these like nice warm moments too. I don't know.
Yeah, he's that way. I know. Well, like I did it as a Criterion recommendation, but he's that way in 5 Easy Pieces too.
I know. I was looking for that, and my store didn't have it. So
well, that's also in that box set.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna get that box set because there's a bunch of movies in there that I want to get.
Okay, very good.
But anyways, that's gonna do it for us, I guess. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'll see you in the next episode.
Return to VIDEOTECH.